One Piece Blades of Fire Chapter 481-500. Chapter 481. The Secret That Is Close at Hand. You can't blame Zhang Yang for recognizing the land as Daxian Junyuan. In this dark night, an old man with an ancient and immortal style suddenly appeared. Coupled with the tense atmosphere, he could easily mistake it for Daxian Junyuan. After Zhang Yang held him for a while, there was no movement in the land, and he felt that something was wrong. Qingfeng and Mingyu behind him also looked surprised. Why didn't Tang Seng know his master? Both of them couldn't help but raise their vigilance and hid Jin Zhanzi and the tray behind them. The land didn't talk nonsense with Zhang Yang. He pushed him away, and then waved the cane in his hand, and a rattan appeared out of nowhere and wrapped around Zhang Yang. The rattan was wrapped around the golden bell, and the land manipulated the rattan to throw Zhang Yang into the air, and then fell heavily to the ground. Zhang Yang closed his eyes and thought he would hit the ground, but he did not expect that the golden bell and his body would penetrate into the ground together. When he opened his eyes, he found himself falling into a huge annular abyss. Seeing that the land in charge of the ginseng fruit trees had thrown Zhang Yang under the fruit trees, Qingfeng on the ground asked inexplicably, "Why are you doing this? How dare you let outsiders enter the underground space without the order of your tutor?" The land asked, "Where is the real body of Sun Wukong and the others?" Qingfeng asked, "Why ask this?" The land replied, "You are too careless. Sun Wukong, Zhu Baji, Sha Seng, and a strange monster, they have discovered the ginseng fruit tree long ago, and they forced me to ask the secret under the tree. I have no choice but to solve them. Now find their true bodies first. Even if there is a way to come out, they will be lost without their true bodies." Qingfeng and Mingyu naturally knew what the secret under the tree was, and they did not dare to delay for a moment. Next to them is the guest room of Zhang Yang and his group. As expected, they are all flesh, and the primordial spirit is long gone. The land stared at their bodies with red eyes, took out a knife from his hand, and walked towards them with gnashing teeth. Gecko was sprinkled in the Wuzhuang temple, blood was sprinkled on the windows, and the only thing left was the cry of the baby buried deep in the ground, resentful and painful. Wukong and the others began to jump into the abyss. As it got deeper and deeper, the surrounding light became darker and darker, and the cry of the miserable baby below became louder and louder. Wukong was anxious when he heard it, spit out a fire snake, and burned it straight down, illuminating the surrounding stone walls. However, the fiery-eyed Wukong suddenly saw something. He hurriedly stopped, and stopped the other two. Baji smashed the nail rake into the stone wall with force, held the weapon in one hand, hung it on the stone wall, and asked, "Why don't you go down, brother monkey?" Cat Niang's nose is very sensitive. She smelled a stench in the air and said, "It seems that something has come up." Wukong's eyes glowed with golden light, and it was easy to see what was coming up. Those creatures that were clinging to the stone walls and climbing up densely, were human-shaped, but their bodies were extremely thin, with four thin branches like branches, and their oval faces had no organs except for a large mouth full of fangs. Those evil ghosts like hell are climbing up quickly along the stone wall, and the number is astonishing. Wukong pulled out a monkey hair, turned it into an iron rod like a golden hoop rod, and then pushed it hard on the wall of the cave, hanging the sand monk on it. Then he said, "I have never seen such a terrible scene in the palace of the King of Hell. You have to be careful, those evil ghosts have climbed up." Baji squeezed the nine-toothed nail rake nervously. He was most afraid of meeting an opponent with a large number of people. If he was one-on-one, he would not be afraid of anyone. Finally, when the first evil spirit climbed up the stone wall and came into their sight, Wukong fell and swooped down, hitting its head with a stick, instantly blowing its head off, and black blood splattered everywhere. However, in the next second, 5 such evil spirits jumped up from the darkness and grabbed onto Wukong's body. Their sharp claws clasped into Wukong's skin. Wukong's ninja was in severe pain, and a 360-degree rotation tossed them off. However, the stone wall was full of such evil spirits, they roared and climbed up to them unconsciously. Wukong realized that it was ineffective to fight one by one, and he had to use a wide range of attack spells, so he took a deep breath, puffed up his stomach, and then spit out a lot of flames from his mouth, burning it in the crawling ghost. Above the stone wall. As Wukong turned in a circle, the fire snake burned along the wall of the cave, burning the evil spirits to a scorching stench, but soon many evil spirits climbed up over the bodies of the burnt evil spirits in front of them. Seeing this, Baji used a spell to summon water from the Tianhe River, using high-pressure water jets to attack those evil spirits. But as there were too many, some washed away, and they climbed up again. Baji was sweating profusely and asked, "What can I do? This damned land is going to die. If he dares to treat us like this, he won't be afraid of Buddha Tathagata." Wukong said, "I'm afraid, my old grandson dares to conclude that the following things have nothing to do with the old Tathagata." Catgirl, who had been observing for a long time, looked at the center of the abyss below, where there was no light at all, like a bottomless pit. Facing these evil ghosts, she did not have a panic expression on her face, but a thoughtful look, which caught Wukong's attention. "Do you know what's going on here?" Wukong asked. "Don't be rude at this time. If you say it, if you are afraid that it will affect the interests of some people, even if it is the Tathagata, my grandson will cover you." Catgirl stared at Sun Wukong with a serious face, and couldn't help laughing. "I am quite happy that the dignified great sage Monkey King would say such things for me, a nameless little demon. But I confess to you, this place I really want to go, but I don't remember very well, and it's not this place, but I'm sure that the secret of the ginseng fruit tree will be revealed when you get to the bottom below. If you're brave, come with me." After speaking, Cat Neong kicked her legs hard, left the cave wall, jumped to the center, then put her hands and feet together, head down, and swooped down with her eyes closed. Cut. Wukong put the golden hoop stick on his shoulders and said disdainfully, "You forgot that I am the Sun Wukong who is making a lot of trouble in the heavenly palace, and I am not afraid of the sky." After he finished speaking, he jumped and followed. Baji can save the sorrow. He is still hanging on the cave wall alone, shouting loudly, "Brother Monkey, you don't wait for me." Just when Baji was about to jump down, he heard a strange movement from above, like the crisp sound of metal hitting the stone wall. Chapter 482, Dead End. Baji looked up and saw a big golden bell fell from above, and the screaming person wrapped by the golden bell was Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang fell all the way down, constantly hitting the stone wall, and the shock from the collision with the golden bell had caused him to bleed from his 7 orifices, but he had the aura of the protagonist anyway, and his life was not in danger. When he came all the way down and hit the iron rod that fixed the sand monk was also hit by him and fell into the abyss. Seeing that Zhang Yang was about to hit him, Baji used the power of the 9-toothed nail rake inserted into the stone wall to turn over and kick the golden bell, kicking Zhang Yang up again, buffering the falling acceleration. When he fell again, Baji could easily catch him. Zhang Yang was dizzy, looked at the 5 big pig heads in front of him, and couldn't help asking, "Roast suckling pig. Boss, mix some cold dishes, I want to drink." Baji shook him vigorously and asked, "Master, are you stupid? No, why did you fall from the top? Don't you know how to get out of your body?" When Zhang Yang heard someone call him master, he immediately woke up 3 points, and then he saw Baji clearly in front of him. He hugged him and began to complain, "My pig, I can see you, scared to death as a teacher now." With one hand on the 9-toothed nail rake, Baji held Zhang Yang with one hand. He could only lift his leg and pat Zhang Yang's back, comforting, all right, tell me how you got down first." Zhang Yang said aggrievedly, "No one protects me when you are not by my side. That thin old man threw me down. By the way, what is this place? It looks scary." Baji said, "Look at the abyss below. Brother Monkey and Miss Cat have both gone down, and the unlucky monk Sand has also been knocked down by you. Now we are left. Those evil ghosts are about to climb up, master. Get ready, let's go down." Without waiting for Zhang Yang to object, Baji stomped on the stone wall with one foot, and jumped into the abyss together with the 9-toothed rake stuck in it. But they didn't go down for a long time when they saw Wukong struggling to drag Catgirl and Sha Seng up, and the somersault clouds under his feet were about to disperse. Seeing that Baji was about to be installed with the three of them, the nine-toothed nail rake in his hand instantly transformed into a nine-headed Tianhe water demon, letting Baji and Zhang Yang fall on its back. Wukong saw that there was a place to stay, and forcefully threw Cat Niang and San Seng on the back of the water demon, and he fell on the somersault cloud and panted heavily. "Brother Monkey, why did you guys come up again?" Baji asked in confusion. "There's something wrong down there. Like the top, it's a dead end." After Wukong finished speaking, he looked at Zhang Yang and asked, "How did you bald donkey come down? You don't stay up there and protect our real body, come down." "For what?" Baji patted his head and hurriedly asked, "Yes, master, where is our real body? How did you come down?" Zhang Yang hesitantly recalled to them how he came down. "I am afraid that their real bodies are already very bad at this moment." Just a few words made everyone lose their desire to survive. If the real body is gone, it would be meaningless to escape. If the primordial spirit is not with the real body for a long time, it will be wiped out. Zhang Yang did something wrong in the first place. He failed to delay the time for his disciples and hid their true bodies, so he asked guiltily, "I don't quite understand the nature of Yuanchen, either. If it is something similar to the soul, can you temporarily become attached to an object? Then wait until you find a suitable body, and then you can parasitize it." I know that this is how Nezha was resurrected back then. His master Tai made a body made of lotus and lotus roots. Isn't Nezha also resurrected the same way? I may not have that great ability, but I still have the ability to pinch people with mud. Didn't Nua also use mud when she created people? Wukong laughed angrily at him. "You bald donkey still knows a lot. Now let's not talk about the physical matter, let's settle the current matter first. This is the first time I have encountered this situation. There is absolutely no way." The cat girl also said at this time, "I vaguely remember that I have been to a place like this before. After jumping down there, I went to a larger space, and there was a big thing in it. I forgot what it was, but it must be scary." Quote. When Zhang Yang heard her say this, he suddenly remembered that Cat Niang had lost her memory after she met Guanyin Bodhisattva before, but she was pretending. But why did she pretend? Could it be that the place she went to was Luojia Mountain in South Blue, the site of Guanyin Bodhisattva? "Then do you remember how you lost your memory?" After Zhang Yang asked this sentence, the rest of the people stared at him with an idiot look, and he realized that what he just asked was nonsense. A person with amnesia, how could he remember how he lost his memory? So he shrugged and stopped talking. Then the catgirl took out a crystal-clear jewel-like thing from behind and said, "Do you remember? Guanyin came over and took the gold hoop on my head. At that time, she also put a jade in my head. Water droplets in a clean bottle. I don't know how I can take it out, but I really want to feel that the last time I lost my memory was also because of this thing. So I guess the place I went last time was Luojia Mountain." Zhang Yang remembered it and said, "I was thinking when Guanyin Bodhisattva recited your hooping mantra, isn't my Buddha compassionate? How could he give you such a dead hand, and take a golden hoop and wave his hand, she to actually come down and pick it up for you in person? The behavior is very abnormal." Quote. Wukong took off the golden hoop on his head, and said while turning in a circle, "The golden hoop of Guanyin is really mass-produced, and I have one on my head." Zhang Yang waved his hand to signal him not to interrupt, and then continued, "Catgirl, you just said that you have been to a place similar to this place. Could it be Luojia Mountain? Why do I vaguely feel that my back is cold? Is it possible that South Blue also has it? A ginseng fruit tree?" Wukong put the golden hoop back on, and said, "I heard that the local boy said that this ginseng fruit tree was a spiritual thing that existed in the beginning of chaos. There is only one tree in the world, and there should be no other. Monkey, this is why you are ignorant. I don't blame you for not going to school. Do you know that there is a technology called cloning?" Zhang Yang said, "Of course, cloning is a term for animals. If it is a plant, it should be as cell regeneration. To put it simply, as long as a leaf is divided into two halves, under the condition of deliberate maintenance, the cells of this leaf will regenerate, and finally grow into a leaf that is exactly the same as the original." The same is true for ginseng fruit trees. As long as some branches and buds are removed and transplanted to a place with good soil, it is also possible to grow into a ginseng fruit tree again. Chapter 483. Theory of Horror. So how many places with good soil are there in the world? Isn't South Blue Luojia Mountain just one place? Zhang Yang said more and more excitedly, and he said to others excitedly, will South Blue Luojia Mountain be the same? Are you planting ginseng fruit trees? It takes 47,000 years to eat this thing. I remember that whether it is a god or a monster, there will be a calamity every 500 years, which is equivalent to a lifespan of 500 years. Means. Wukong grabbed the monkey hair by his chin. After thinking for a while, he deliberately lowered his voice and said, my old grandson knows that there are not many things in this world that can live forever. Another one is the disciple who sat down with the Tathagata, the reincarnation of Jin Chanzi. There were evil ghosts crawling around the stone wall, and they were still thumping towards Zhang Yang, but they couldn't jump up with little energy, and they all fell to the bottom of the abyss. As soon as the atmosphere dropped to zero and no one spoke, Wukong said again, when my grandson made a fuss in the heavenly palace, he was tricked into becoming the head of the Pantao garden. I only ate a few peaches, and then made a big banquet in Yaoqi and returned to Wagwo Mountain. But after the incident, I heard someone complain that the Jade Emperor told everyone that my old grandson ate all the peaches by himself, which means that he hid the peaches and no longer distributed them. When Baji heard this, his back was cold, he nodded and said, Old Pig has also heard that, whether it is from heaven or Western Buddhism, they have complained about Brother Monkey in private, but everyone knows this. It was clearly the Jade Emperor himself being stingy. Wukong shook his head and said, this matter is not that simple, the Jade Emperor is not a stingy question, he is demonstrating to the Tathagata in the West, which means that the peach that can make people live forever is with him, and he controls the life and death of the entire three realms, no matter people, God, or Buddha. What about Taishang Laojun's elixir? Can it live forever? Zhang Yang asked. The effect is not big, it's true that it can strengthen the body. Wukong said. Then it's similar to health supplements. I'm still wondering when will you ask me for two to try. Now it seems like it's okay. Zhang Yang shook his head to dismiss the idea. Baji on the side heard something in Wukong's words. Since the peaches are no longer distributed, how do Western Buddhas and Bodhisattvas survive the calamity that occurs once every 500 years? He suddenly stood up and asked loudly, could it be? Wukong pulled him down and told him not to be so excited, then nodded and said, it's almost as you think, it's the reincarnation of Jin Chanzi, and they rely on this to live forever. Catwoman turned her head and stared at Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang was horrified by him, and said, look at me, I'm not a Tang monk. But monkey, is there any basis for you to say this? Buddhist disciples eat the reincarnation of Jin Chanzi. Meat is immortal, you can't talk nonsense, you will be punished by God. Wukong sneered. God's punishment. My old grandson has suffered less. I'm also guessing, whether this is true or not, only when Sand Monk gets up and asks we'll know. Baji hurriedly went to shake the Sand Monk, and then Zhang Yang leaned over and asked, I remember that the Sand Monk killed the first 9 reincarnations of Jin Chanzi. Since everyone was killed by him, where does the reason for eating meat come from? Wukong said, that's why I asked him to see if he was lying, but it's unlikely that he's telling the truth, after all, he's a lackey in heaven. Besides, killing people doesn't mean he ate all the 9 reincarnations. Well, maybe he was just an executioner, and after the killing, the meat was taken away. Zhang Yang thought about it, but still felt wrong. He said, do you remember the first time we met? You were the one who beat Tang Seng to death at that time. After I came, the corpse was still thrown everywhere, and it stinks. Who still eats? Wukong nodded and said, 2 possibilities. First, they are afraid that my grandson will know about this. Second, they have found other ways to live longer. Cat Niang said quietly, ginseng fruit. Zhang Yang suddenly realized, South Blue, ginseng fruit from Luojia Mountain. The Genuine Daxian of Wuzhuang Temple and Guanyin Bodhisattva joined hands to plant ginseng fruit in Luojia Mountain. It seems that the planting was successful, so Tangseng's body was thrown there and no one cared. Wukong said, this Zhen Yuanzi claims that he does not worship gods and Buddhas, but only worships heaven and earth. Now it seems that he is a bullshit. He is a cultivator, and it is shameful to join forces with the Buddhist family. You monkey is too extreme. Zhang Yang couldn't listen anymore, and said, what happened to the dual cultivation of Buddhism and Taoism? Your seclusion and isolation of the country will make you weaker and weaker. You only stay in your comfort zone. If you don't go out, your circle will get smaller and smaller sooner or later, and eventually you will be trapped to death. Wukong never planned to tell Zhang Yang that his master was the ancestor of Taoism, Bodhi. Even if he was expelled from the master, he was grateful to his master, so no matter when, Wukong was dissatisfied with Buddhism in his heart. This time, the Tathagata's thoughts have been thoroughly figured out by him. One is to spread Buddhism to the Eastern Tang dynasty, and the other is to convert him and Baji, two Taoist people, to Buddhism and show them to the world. But then Zhang Yang said, even if it is your master, he was not taught by the West before, he should be regarded as a person who cultivates both Buddhism and Taoism. You see where he lives, Lingtai Feng Kunshan, remove the middle, it is not Lingshan Words. Wukong jumped up with a bang, frightening Baji, who was slapping the monk's face wildly. He turned around and asked, Brother Monkey, what's the matter with you? Wukong approached Zhang Yang and asked, Bald Donkey, how did you know? I don't remember telling you about my master. Seeing that he was so excited, Zhang Yang waved his hand to let him be quiet for a while, and explained, I'm not very good, how can I be your master? Not only do I know that your master is the ancestor of Bodhi, I also know that he once had a nickname called Junti Taoist, and the Tathagata is a senior brother. Quote. Baji was also shocked when he heard it. He also stood up abruptly and stood side by side with Wukong. The two of them stared at each other, obviously feeling incredible for Zhang Yang. Cat Niang, who is an outsider, listened to her calmly. She said, the person who can replace Tang Seng to study scriptures is naturally not an ordinary person. Are you a little too panicked? Zhang Yang spread his hands helplessly and said, I can't do anything about it, I'm so powerful and low-key, how many people have asked me to be my apprentice, but I haven't agreed, a few of them are the blessings they've cultivated in their lifetimes, don't know how to cherish. But I said monkeys and pigs, you two are my heart and my lungs, you are not allowed to hide anything from me. The last sentence made Wukong and Baji feel guilty. They suddenly realized that the publicity in front of them had a little bit of a golden cicada feeling. Chapter 484. The Long-Lost Master. There is a reason for Zhang Yang to say this. Ever since they left without saying goodbye, Zhang Yang had already suspected that they had something to hide from him. Not much to say about Baji, he must have been led away by Wukong, and Wukong has always had something in his heart that he didn't talk to him, let alone talk to Baji. What happened to him when he was pinned down under the Wuji mountain, turning a rebellious monkey king into a melancholy little monkey? Zhang Yang couldn't guess, he could only wait for when Wukong really recognized him as a master. Maybe we'll be honest. At this moment, the monk Sand woke up, and Wukong took a breath and removed the sewing thread on his mouth. Sha Sang glanced at the people around him blankly, and then looked down at his hands, tears overflowing in an instant. Baji leaned down, patted him on the back and said, Crocodile, you see we've all gone through so much, no matter what it was like before, at least we should have a good conversation now, and if you have any opinions on us, you should be direct. Say, if you keep trying to kill Master, we can somewhat guess who ordered it. But it doesn't matter. The important thing is that we are a team now. You said that your hand was broken. Who installed it for you? After you fell into the abyss, who brought you up sweaty? There is no second person in this world who has saved your 2 lives in a row, right? Sha Sang burst into tears when he was told. He turned to look at Wukong. Wukong turned his head away embarrassedly. Sha Sang slowly opened his mouth, and a few words popped out from his mouth. Bai Ma Wen. Wukong frowned and turned around. The stick in his hand was about to be raised. But then Sand Monk said, "Thank you." In his eyes, there was no longer indifference, but a flash of warmth. He used to work hard in the heavenly court, only to smash the glazed cup to save the Jade Emperor's life, and was banished to the lower realm, becoming a monster of Liusha River. However, every 20 years after that, someone will throw a skull into the quicksand river, and tell him that this person was murdered by him, and that this pot is for him to carry. 180 years have passed, and 9 skulls have floated in the quicksand river. Every night, those skulls are like unwilling souls who are unwilling to die, talking, giggling, and telling their pain. Later, Sha Seng connected these skulls with a rope to make a human bone necklace, and listened to them tell stories every night. Later, these skulls collectively made a request to the monk Sha, saying that the 10th skull would probably not come again, because he should be selected to be the person who went to study and preach Buddhism. Over the years, their physical bodies are almost enough for those Buddhas in the West to eat. Therefore, they hoped that Seng Sha could kill the 10th person who took the scriptures, so that Jin Chanzi's 10th reincarnation would end early, and there would be no need to pass on the broken scriptures. Therefore, when Zhang Yang appeared in front of the monk Sha, he regarded him as a monk of Tang, and only wanted to kill him. What Wukong did today is clearly felt by Sha Seng. This is the warmth of being cared for by others, just like his family. He wiped away his tears, got up from the ground, knelt down and kowtowed to Zhang Yang. "Master is above, receive the most sincere worship from your disciples." Then he said to Wukong and Baji, "Senior brother, second senior brother, I know I'm wrong." Baji's eyes were also wet. The person who knew the biggest secret was actually Sha Seng. God knows how he spent all these years. He didn't say anything, just went over and gave him a hug. Wukong learned that the reason why Sha Seng wanted to kill the person who took the scriptures was to help him get free. This was risking his own disappearance from the world forever. He was the most courageous person. So Wukong went over, hugged Monk Sha, and said, "Good brother." Seeing the 3 of them hugging each other, Zhang Yang couldn't hold back his tears. He wiped, and said in a sobbing voice, "Although, you guys are usually quite rude. But now seeing you like this, I am the happiest in my heart as a master. This is the real journey to the West, and the real team of learning scriptures. What the hell was all that before? I don't know how I made it through this journey." After saying that, Zhang Yang let out a loud, "Wow," then hugged the cat girl and rubbed her head straight towards the cat girl's chest, wiping tears and snot. Cat girl patted him on the back and said, "Okay, I didn't expect you to cry like this." Wukong, Baji, and Sha Seng looked at him, and their hearts were also moved for a while. Although Zhang Yang was quite a serious person, he was more like their master than anyone else. Baji and Sha Seng knelt down again, and then they looked at Wukong, hoping that he would also give master a bow. Wukong stared at Zhang Yang, pursed his mouth, and said after a while, "Master, please accept the disciples' bow." After speaking, he also knelt on the ground, and the 3 brothers kowtowed to Zhang Yang together. Zhang Yang was so moved that it had been so long. The monkey called him master for the first time, and his snot full of snot rushed towards the monkey. "My monkey, I've been waiting for you to say master for a long time, more than 500 years have passed." Quote, "Okay master, now is not the time to be hypocritical, let's think about how to get out." Wukong straightened Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang nodded, glanced at the 3 disciples in front of him, then took a deep breath and calmed down. A sense of responsibility emerged spontaneously. "As your master, I must take you out of here." After a stick of incense, the 9-toothed nail rake transformed into a water demon of the Tianhe River, floated in the air and fell asleep. Wukong was sleeping on one of its heads, and Baji stared at the halo like the moon in a daze. Zhang Yang, pulling Sha Seng and Cat Niang to play Truth or Dare. "Sorry, I don't play anymore, didn't you say take us out?" Catgirl yawned and lay down, and said to herself, "I don't know how long it has been, I can't spend my whole life here." Zhang Yang looked at the evil ghosts on the stone wall who opened their mouths and roared at him, and a question arose in his heart, it has been a long time, why hasn't anyone come down to see their state? Are they under surveillance all the time? Thinking of this, Zhang Yang suddenly had a plan in his heart. You come here, I have come up with a way that requires everyone to work together, maybe it can change the status quo. Zhang Yang called everyone over and said, I think we are being watched by the land that guards the ginseng fruit trees, and he will come down when all your primordial spirits are gone. If that's the case, we'll come up with a countermeasure, let him out, and leave him alive at that time, and press him to death. If he doesn't believe that he can't find a way to go up, he can't even think about it. Catgirl asked, tell me, what's the countermeasure? Chapter 485, Killing the Land. Well, it's not the way to stay here all the time, let's try to kill all those evil ghosts. Zhang Yang's non-flying spells, Baji, Shaseng and Cat Niang all know a little bit of cloud soaring, not to mention Wukong, a somersault can be used for 108,000 miles, and he can walk 5 or 6 a day from Datang to Shishan. To ask. So Zhang Yang stayed on top and let the 4 of them go down to kill those evil ghosts. Wukong held the extended version of the golden cudgel and swept away thousands of troops. Baji did not have a rake, but could spit water, and the strong impact of the water column could cut off the evil spirits. The sand monk's shovel was also very powerful, and a shovel could knock down a ball evil. Catwoman's claws are extremely sharp, and one claw can cut off the head of an evil spirit. The 4 of them fought hard below, and Zhang Yang started to meditate on top, and read the scriptures. His eldest uncle and his second uncle are his uncles, and the high stool and the low stool are all wood. In fact, where would Zhang Yang know what scriptures are recited? This is intentional, the purpose is to attract land. After a while, no one came out, so they consciously entered the second battle plan. The 4 began to pretend to be tired, and their speed and strength were not as good as before. It didn't take long for them to be caught by evil spirits and entangled them separately. Eat without bones. Zhang Yang saw that his apprentices were all eaten, and knew that it was time for him to play, so he stood up in a panic and shouted to the surrounding evil spirits, My God! What a powerful evil spirit! Even my apprentices were defeated, I really admire it. If someone comes to kill me at this time, wouldn't I be very dangerous? At this time, Wukong and others, who were hiding under the abdomen of the Tianhe water demon, were ashamed, and they all disliked Zhang Yang's acting skills, and dared not to be worse. The reason why these 4 people appear here is that they have been hiding here since they set off, and the only thing that has been entangled with the evil spirits just now is Wukong's 4 monkey hairs. Zhang Yang wailed on it for a while, and finally lived up to expectations and led the land out. From the halo that could not be seen above, a small black spot suddenly appeared, and then slowly descended. When he fell to the top of Zhang Yang's head, he could see that there was still a rope-like umbilical cord connected to his belly button, and the other end rose all the way up, so he couldn't see his head. Zhang Yang felt a chill behind him. He looked up and saw the shirtless land, startled. Well, you old man, do you want to rebel? I am the reincarnated Tang Seng of Jin Chanzi, a disciple of the Tathagata, do you feel tired of living? Zhang Yang scolded him when he saw him appearing. I am just like you. Hit 10, and those who are sensible quickly put me up. The land showed a strange smile, and said yin and yang strangely, it seems that you still don't know who you have touched the interests of. Tang Seng, even if the Buddha came, he would not think that what I did was wrong. Zhang Yang asked unhappily, what interests did I touch? I stayed on top and told stories to those 2 Taoist boys. You threw me down, and I didn't do anything. The land said, what about your apprentices? They want to uncover the secrets under the ginseng fruit tree. This is a capital crime. Zhang Yang said with a smile, isn't that true? Will you protect me to study scriptures when they die? Besides, what secrets could there be under this tree? Do you need you to be so excited? The land floated down from above, stood in front of Zhang Yang, and said, stop dreaming. Without the permission of Junyuan Daxian, no one has the qualifications and rights to go down, not even me. Zhang Yang asked, aren't you the one guarding here? Why don't you dare to go down? Is there a man-eating monster below? After speaking, he pointed to the evil spirits crawling on the surrounding stone walls. Tutu raised the cane in his hand and said, "You don't need to know." He saw some rattans hit from the stone wall and wrapped around Zhang Yang's body. With a shovel, he cut off all the canes that had been entangled in Zhang Yang's body, and then saw the sand monk flying up from below. Immediately afterwards, Wukong and others all appeared, surrounding the old man of the land. Wukong raised the golden hoop stick and smashed the ground to the ground, shouting loudly, "Eat my old grandson with a stick." The land did not expect that these troublesome people were still alive, and apparently out of proportion, he hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. "Grandpa Dasheng, the little god is also compelled to do so. I beg Grandpa Dasheng to let him go." "Is it just a great sage?" Bajia kicked him to the ground and said, "And what about your Grandpa Canopy, Grandpa Rolling Blind and Grandma Cat?" Yes, the grandfathers and grandmothers, the little god knows it's wrong." The land kowtowed and confessed. Zhang Yang walked up to him, grabbed his hair with his hand, and asked, "Now let's analyze the situation. You will definitely not be able to escape, so as long as you explain everything to us clearly, there is still a possibility of life. Understand?" The land cried out, "Elder Tang, it's not because I'm stubborn, it's because I really can't talk about it. Instead of being beaten to death by you, I don't want to die at the hands of those people." Zhang Yang probably already knew from the conversation just now that this matter has nothing to do with the Tathagata Buddha. If it is for the sake of immortality for all Buddhas, why keep it a secret? Thinking of this, he asked, "Just tell me what secrets are hidden here. Don't tell me, I don't know who is behind this. You just need to take us down to find out, and finally don't forget to take us out, otherwise, you know the temper of my eldest apprentice, but he fought with the Buddha back then." The land has both the right and the left, thinking that it is important to protect the life in front of you first, then nodded and said, "Okay, if you want to go down by yourself, I will also open this passage for you, and then you can fly up and go out. No more there is an endless cycle of things happening, but the little god really dare not go down, and I hope you all forgive me." "Okay, then hurry up," Wukong said, rubbing his nose. "Yes, the great sage." The land recited the incantation, only to hear a muffled sound around, and the dead end of the passage was solved. Immediately afterwards, Wukong went down with a stick, and the brains of the ground were splashed, and his life was ended in an instant. Baji asked inexplicably, "Brother Monkey, what are you doing? Everyone said to help us, why did you beat him to death?" Wukong picked up the umbilical cord that was attached to the navel of the earth, tore it off with force, and said with a smile, "I am here to help him free." I saw an aura emerge from the earth, and it thanked Wukong. "Thank you, the great sage, I can't blame me now." "Okay, find a place to hide for a while, then find a physical body to practice again, and be an earth immortal honestly." Wukong waved his hand, signaling him to leave quickly. Chapter 486, Mysterious Giant Baby. When the land unraveled the dead end, the abyss underwent some subtle changes. For example, the halo above disappeared and became a small spot of light. Where the exit was located, a small spot of light appeared, but fluoresced green. Everyone had made a decision, so Baji put away the Tianhe water demon and turned into a nine-toothed drake again, and everyone jumped down together. The evil spirits around were still rushing towards them. Wukong hugged Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang looked at the growing green light below. A nervousness surged in his heart, as if he was getting closer and closer to a big secret. When they finally reached the bottom, they found that they came to a larger hemispherical space. Under their feet were countless skulls, and on the four sides of the entire semicircular space, there were four huge babies inlaid with green. It is from them that the light emanates. Zhang Yang hugged Wukong and didn't let go. The skulls all over the floor made his back feel cold, and the stench in the air made his stomach feel sick. "You say, why do these skulls look so small?" Zhang Yang asked. Wukong threw Zhang Yang down, then picked up a skull and squeezed it in his hand. He crushed the skull with force. He looked at the four giant babies around him, and said, "These are baby skulls." When Baji and Sha Seng stayed together, They didn't dare to move their backs, because those huge babies were so weird. They squinted their eyes and seemed to laugh, and there were constant cries of babies coming from the ground. As chilling as living hell. The cat girl stared at one of the huge babies and said, I seem to remember, this is the ghost I saw before, but there are not so many. Zhang Yang became more and more aware of the fact that was in front of him. He couldn't believe it. The secret of the ginseng fruit tree was actually using these babies as nutrients. He looked at the vast space around him and said to himself, how many babies are needed to accumulate such a large number? Catgirl patted his shoulder and said, this is what your Buddha did, what do you think now? Zhang Yang shook his head and didn't speak. It was difficult for him to accept this fact. At this moment, he really wanted to save the skulls all over the ground, but he didn't even dare to say a word of Amitabha. Wukong picked up the golden hoop and walked towards the giant baby closest to him. He said, let's see what kind of monster this is. If it survives, my grandson will kill him. Baji and Sha Seng also flew in the direction of the two giant babies, and then Zhang Yang and Cat Niang also acted together. After they were almost separated, Zhang Yang could hardly see his apprentice. He said to the cat girl beside him, this place is so big, why do I have an ominous premonition? Catgirl said to him, why are you so timid? You don't have to be afraid when I'm with you. Zhang Yang immediately took Cat Niang's arm and said, that's okay, you protect me. The two came to the bottom of the giant baby and looked up. The giant baby was also very far away from them. The cat lady could use the cat's claws to climb up, but Zhang Yang couldn't. He doesn't have a bit of magic, and he won't go anywhere. Cat Niang had no choice but to point to her back and said, I'll carry you up. Zhang Yang was a little scared. Will I fall? I don't want to die here. The cat girl said, then you can wait down there. Zhang Yang quit again. I'm afraid to be alone, so I'd better stay with you. After that, Zhang Yang lay on Cat Niang's back, wrapped his hands around his neck, and even put his legs on her waist. Catwoman was strangled so hard that she could not breathe, and said, just take it easy. Even if you fall, I can catch you as soon as possible, take it easy. Zhang Yang loosened up a little, and then was carried on his back by Catgirl step by step. If it weren't for this kind of environment, it would be really comfortable to lie on a woman's back, especially when you could smell the scent of a woman's flesh on Cat Niang's body at close range, and Zhang Yang's body was a little out of control when he smelled it. After crawling for a while, Cat Niang felt that something was pushing against her back, so she stopped and asked, what are you pushing me with? Throw it away. Zhang Yang said embarrassedly, that's the restless beast under my crotch, you just have to worry about it, who makes you so charming. Cat Niang wanted to throw Zhang Yang down, but she finally held back and had to climb up while pretending that she couldn't feel what was on her back. The giant baby was embedded in the cave wall, so when they came to the recessed cave wall, Zhang Yang could get off the catgirl's back. Looking at the giant baby in front of him, Zhang Yang was in a trance for a moment, feeling that he was too much like the Tathagata Buddha in his impression. Catgirl was panting aside, sweat slid down her face. Zhang Yang stared at her for a while, and the beast under her crotch began to agitate again. Cat Niang looked at the tent set up below Zhang Yang, her face flushed, and she pretended not to see him walking past him and came to the feet of the giant baby. She reached out and touched it, and was surprised to find that the surface of the giant baby was soft, just like human skin. Is this alive? She asked. Zhang Yang also came to Zhu Ying. He wanted to reach out and touch it, but when he looked up and saw the expression on Zhu Ying's face, he stopped. He looked around for a while, and suddenly found that the back of the giant baby was connected to a lot of rattan. One end was connected to the giant baby, and the other end was inserted into the stone wall. He asked, could these be the meridians used by ginseng fruit trees to deliver nutrients? Ginseng fruit is really something that can make people immortal. Don't look at its nutrients, poor baby. Catgirl asked, since the secret of the ginseng fruit tree has been revealed, what are you going to do now? Zhang Yang said, let's not talk about me first, even my monkey can't stand it. I guess he has started to fight with a stick now. At this moment, there was a sudden movement of the ground shaking and the mountains shaking, and their feet began to vibrate. Immediately afterwards, the giant baby in front of Zhang Yang actually moved. Like a fetus in the amniotic fluid, he kicked his hands and feet indiscriminately, with a painful expression on his face. "Damn it! Live!" Zhang Yang shouted and pulled the catgirl to run out, but when they came to the edge, they saw countless evil ghosts climbing up from the stone wall below, each roaring with their teeth and claws. He was taken aback. How the hell did he forget them? Cat Niang squatted down and said to Zhang Yang, "Come on my back and I'll jump off with you." Zhang Yang shook his head, ran over and took Cat Niang's hand, ran to the side and jumped into the air. Catgirl looked at Zhang Yang in horror, wondering if he was crazy and wanted to commit suicide. Chapter 487, The Great Immortal of Junyuan. Zhang Yang jumped into the air with the cat girl in his arms, and then fell straight down. Just when the cat girl thought he was crazy, Zhang Yang's body began to change, some white smoke came out of his body, and the smoke finally condensed became a knife. Zhang Yang held the handle of the knife, then put the blade under his feet, and said to Cat Niang, "Don't be afraid, brother will take you to fly." Wukong was smashing the giant baby with his golden cudgel when he suddenly heard a miserable roar behind him. He stood on the edge of the cave wall and flew away a few evil ghosts who were about to climb up. Then he saw Zhang Yang and Cat Niang on the other side falling straight down, and finally both fell into the pile of skulls, and there was a flash of golden light. There was no movement. He called Somersault Cloud, and soon flew to the site of the incident. He saw a huge pit that had been smashed out of the ground. Inside the pit were two people, Zhang Yang and Cat Niang, who were foaming at the mouth. He asked, "Master, what are you doing?" Zhang Yang's eyes moved a bit, he turned his head slowly, and said to Wukong, "Japanese swords are really unreliable, I thought they could fly." Now, the cat girl who was dragged down by him didn't feel very well, and fell directly and fainted. Wukong pulled up and said, "Master, what are you going to do? It's not suitable to stay here for a long time." Zhang Yang picked up Cat Niang, then looked at the four hideous-looking giant babies and the evil spirits surging like a tide on the stone wall, and said, "I don't dare to act rashly here, otherwise, we will be implicated too. Inside, go out first, then uproot the ginseng fruit tree and destroy it." Wukong nodded. At this time, Baji and Sha Seng also flew over. Zhang Yang talked to them about the plan, and then Baji raised his nine-toothed rake, ready to become a Tianhe water demon and take them out of here. At this moment, a voice came from above their heads. "Bold monsters, how dare you trespass on the forbidden site of my Wuzhuang temple, you don't want to go out alive." The group began to surge like seawater, and a giant hand composed of countless skulls suddenly stretched out from under the skull. Zhang Yang couldn't stand under his feet and fell to the ground. Cat Niang was awakened by the huge movement and hurriedly asked what happened around. After Zhang Yang was crushed to death by her, he explained with difficulty, "Zhen Yuanzi is here, you should get up first and then talk about it." Wukong raised his golden cudgel and looked at the giant hand in front of him, his face turned hideous. He was too familiar with this giant hand. He was defeated by this giant hand when he was making a lot of trouble in the Tiangong. "Today my old grandson will fight you to the death." Wukong shouted while jumping on the somersault cloud and flying towards the giant hand, but the giant hand grabbed him in one hand. Seeing this, Baji and Sha Seng hurried up to help. Before they could fly to the giant hand, they saw the golden hoop stick coming out of the giant hand, and then drew a circle and divided the giant hand in half. However, the scattered skulls soon gathered together again, clenched into fists and attacked Goku and the others. Wukong enlarged the golden hoop, and then pushed it up, touching his fist. Baji and Sha Seng also helped behind, and the three brothers worked hard together to fight against the giant fist. Seeing that the disciples were struggling so hard, Zhang Yang hurriedly waved the flowing blade like fire, and a light blade was released from the blade, forming a crescent-shaped energy wave in the air, splitting the giant fist in half. However, the body of the giant fist is countless skulls. Even if it is scattered, it will quickly condense. If you want to crack it, you can only find the Junyuanzi who secretly manipulated it. Zhang Yang observed around for a long time, but did not find Junyuanzi's figure, and his heart gradually became anxious. At this time, the cat girl shouted, "Those evil spirits are coming." Zhang Yang held Lu Ren Ruahuo in one hand, and held Cat Niang in his arms in the other hand. The evil spirits jumped on Zhang Yang and the golden bell shroud was bounced off. Cat Niang looked at Zhang Yang. Her face flushed quietly. The monk in front of her was not as vulnerable as she imagined. Zhang Yang glanced down at the cat girl in his arms, raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "If it weren't for the emergency now, I would definitely have kissed you for being so shy, but I'd better keep it for later." After he finished speaking, continued to wave the flowing blade like fire, cutting all the surrounding evil spirits in half. At the same time, the 4 giant babies embedded in the cave wall suddenly struggled violently. They were torn from the cave wall, but the rattan behind them was still connected, but it did not hinder their movements. The 4 giant babies jumped down, causing the ocean-like skulls to rise again. Zhang Yang swayed his body and almost fell to the ground again. He felt scared when he saw these 4 giant babies. If the 4 monsters weren't so panicked, but they were babies, he always felt uncomfortable looking at them. Just as he was about to chop at these babies, a white-haired old Taoist priest in a yellow robe floated down from the cylindrical stone wall they had descended from. When he came down, the giant hand also collapsed into pieces. The skull fell to the ground. This person is Junyuan Daxian of Wuzhuangguan. He opened his arms and chanted a spell in his mouth, and then saw 4 huge spells suddenly appear in front of the giant babies, blocking the giant babies' movements. The giant baby was tearing at the talisman that radiated golden light, but Junyuan Daxian's mana was very strong. He was a person who existed in the beginning of chaos, and his ability was unfathomable. I saw that the 4 giant talismans kept pushing the giant babies back, then wrapped them up, rose up again, and got trapped in the cave wall. After the giant babies' movements were blocked, Junyuan Daxian retracted his hands, stared at Zhang Yang and said, "Jin Chanzi, stay safe." Facing such a character, Zhang Yang had no choice but to start his own Zhang's performance rules. He took a deep breath, frowned and said with a deep expression, "Long time no see, Zhen Yuanzi. I thought you should be on the way to get scriptures now, why did you come here?" Junyuan Daxian has an irresistible temperament. Very oppressive. Zhang Yang felt that he had been killed by Zhen Yuanzi several times. His eyes were a little dodged, but he still had to act enough, so he bit his head and said, "Can't you hear yourself? There are countless babies crying here. As a monk, how can you just sit back and watch?" Unexpectedly, Zhen Yuanzi laughed out loud, and the laughter resounded in the huge semi-enclosed cave, which seemed particularly permeable. After laughing, he said, "I didn't expect you to pretend to be Jin Chanzi, Tang Seng. You are just the reincarnation of Jin Chanzi. How can you remember what happened before?" Seeing that he was seen through, Zhang Yang closed his mouth and was embarrassed to speak again. Chapter 488, Good Intentions. The 3 brothers Wukong, Baji, and Sha Seng stood behind Daxian Junyuan. As long as he dared to attack Zhang Yang, they would do it from behind. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder for a moment, and even the air seemed to condense, and Zhang Yang felt a little difficult to breathe. But when he thought that he was protected by Folang's golden bell hood, he was a little more confident. Anyway, Folang was a divine beast that existed in the early days of the universe, and he should be more powerful than Zhen Yuanzi. "Zhen Yuanzi, back then you and I met at the Yulan festival, and I passed tea to you personally. You are good, but now you want to kill me. Is this something done by a great immortal who shares the same life as the sky?" Zhang Yang racked his brains to recall everything about Journey to the West, hoping to make Zhen Yuanzi open up to them. Zhen Yuanzi was obviously very surprised, because the Buddhist Yulan festival and the Taoist Zongyuan festival are both on the same day, which is the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. So on the Yulan festival that year, the Buddha recruited all the gods and Buddhas from all over the world. "Whatever you teach, get together for the holidays." It was indeed Jin Chanzi who passed tea to him at the Yulan festival, but how did Tang Seng know about this? Didn't he erase his memory when he was reincarnated in the 10th world? In order to determine whether Zhang Yang is Jin Chanzi, Zhen Yuanzi asked another question. Tang Seng, do you remember what you said to me before your 10th reincarnation? Hearing this, Zhang Yang almost couldn't hold back his scolding. He thought to himself that this old man had a lot of troubles. How could he know these trivial things? So he had to say with a dark face, well. Seeing Zhang Yang's sudden seriousness, Zhen Yuanzi really believed that Tang Seng still retained his memory, so he asked with a painful expression, since you remember, why do you want to go back to this place? Have you already made up your mind? How could Zhang Yang know what Zhen Yuanzi was talking about? He could only bite the bullet and be sure. No matter if Zhang Yang thought it was inexplicable, even Wukong and the others felt that there was something going on here, especially Wukong. The more Jin Chanzi was involved, the more he wanted to pay attention, so he stood up and asked, Zhen Yuanzi, what kind of whispers did you and my master say back then? Why don't you tell me? Zhen Yuanzi shook his head and said, since Tang Seng is here, let him speak for himself. Zhang Yang was a little stunned. He glared at Wukong, then coughed twice, pretending to be sad, and said, I don't want to repeat what happened back then, you should tell it. Zhen Yuanzi glanced at Cat Niang, and just as he was about to ask a question, Zhang Yang took her to introduce, this is my future wife, so she is my own, you don't have to worry. After saying this, Zhang Yang felt guilty. First of all, his current setting is a monk who learned from the scriptures. How can a monk have a wife? Another is that he really doesn't know the background of Catgirl at all, so abruptly saying that she is his own person, would it be a bit sloppy? Who knew that Zhen Yuanzi first stared at Zhang Yang with a strange expression for a while? Zhang Yang was about to say that he was joking. Who knew that Zhen Yuanzi laughed before he could speak, and he said while laughing, you are the same as back then. The old look. Quote. Later, Zhen Yuanzi recalled the events of the year to Wukong and others. Ginseng fruit was originally a fairy grass produced in the early period of chaos, but the nutrients it needs to grow are different from ordinary vegetation. It does not need nutrients such as soil, sunlight, and water. What it needs is the flesh and blood of living people. After Zhen Yuanzi later learned the secret of ginseng fruit, he built Wuzhuang Temple around the fruit tree and began to study how to change the nutrient of ginseng fruit here. Therefore, Zhen Yuanzi became the ancestor of the earth immortal, and he also became a gardener part-time, but he was really powerless. Although he prevented the ginseng fruit trees from capturing living people to absorb nutrients, the ginseng fruit trees also stopped growing and no longer bear fruit. And the trunk is still gradually peeling off the bark, beginning to age. In this way, the earth immortals who depended on ginseng fruit to survive began to let him go, and they didn't bear any fruit. How could they live? Is it possible to die like a human being who cannot live longer? Just when Zhen Yuanzi was at a loss, Tathagata Buddha came to his Wuzhuang temple, went down to the cave with him, and discussed the solution with him. Hundreds of years ago, this underground cave looked like this, full of skulls. The Tathagata asked Zhen Yuanzi why the ground was full of baby skulls. Zhen Yuanzi waved his hand, stirred up the group of skulls, and pulled out the adult skulls underground, explaining that the bottom was full of corpse water, so the baby's skull was relatively light. Floated up. In the face of the Jade Emperor's careful eyes and no longer providing pan peaches, the life and death of the gods and Buddhas, the Tathagata thought of the past when he cut flesh to feed eagles. He shed a tear and decided to donate his secret to save Zongshan and Buddha. Zhen Yuanzi pointed to the 4 giant babies on the wall of the cave and said, these are the 4 children of the Tathagata, and they have been the ones who have maintained the nutrients of the ginseng fruit trees over the years. At first, Zhang Yang thought he had heard it wrong, but after thinking about it carefully, he was sure that Zhen Yuanzi said the words, son of the Tathagata. His worldview was shattered into scum at this moment. He looked at Cat Niang and said with an affectionate expression, even the Buddha has a son, so let's get married tomorrow. Wukong and Baji both fell to the ground with laughter. Tathagata Buddha actually had a son. If such a big thing spread out, wouldn't it shock the entire 3 realms? Zhen Yuanzi glanced at them and said, it's not what you think, the Tathagata cut off his own body and turned into 4 giant babies, here to provide nutrients for the ginseng fruit tree. The reason why he didn't want to make this secret public was because he didn't want the gods and Buddhas to know that the ginseng fruit they ate was actually the meat of the Tathagata. Tathagata meat. Why does it sound so familiar? Zhang Yang thought of the Jin Chanzi who disappeared from the beginning. Isn't his flesh also immortal? Wukong thought for a while, then nodded. It makes sense. If everyone knows that eating the meat of the Buddha can lead to longevity, then they all want the meat to be eaten by the Buddha. Zhen Yuanzi nodded. Later Jin Chanzi found out about the Tathagata. He also came here, but he held the opposite opinion to the Tathagata Buddha. After finishing speaking, Zhen Yuanzi looked at Zhang Yang, and then continued. Jin Chanzi believes that since everything in the world has birth and death, it can be a complete reincarnation, and it is against the laws of nature to live forever. It is a big mistake to maintain the lifespan of the gods and Buddhas in this way. Quote. So Jin Chanzi was punished for 10 reincarnations? Wukong asked. No, the 10th reincarnation was initiated by Jin Chanzi. He wanted to prove his fault to the Buddha. After speaking, Zhen Yuanzi's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of sadness. Chapter 489. Yi Er's Return. It turns out that Jin Chanzi dozed off at a Buddhist scripture conference, and was later punished by the Tathagata Buddha for his 10th reincarnation accident. It is a rumor, but the truth is that Jin Chanzi tried to prove to the Buddha that it was not advisable to sacrifice his life to save people. So voluntarily let himself be eaten 10 times. He just wanted to let the Buddha see that the gods and Buddhas are actually like humans, unable to get rid of their desires, and the ugly face of them eating human flesh for longevity makes people shudder. After Zhen Yuanzi finished talking about these past events sealed by time, his face returned to his previous solemnity, and he said, until the matter is resolved, please keep this matter a secret. If the secret is leaked out, then your fate will be, but it's not something I can say. Zhang Yang didn't expect Zhen Yuanzi to change his tune suddenly. Obviously before he looked like he was going to destroy them all. But since he can go out, and the secret of this ginseng fruit tree is not against morals, Zhang Yang doesn't plan to pursue anymore. He originally wanted to uproot the tree. I see. Baji and Sha Seng didn't say anything. Catwoman stared at the giant babies thoughtfully. Seeing that they didn't make a statement, Zhang Yang said, we absolutely won't say anything, don't worry. After that, Zhen Yuanzi took them out of the lower world and came to Wuzhuang Temple, and then asked Qingfeng Mingyu to pick up a few ginseng fruits, please Zhang Yang and his party to enjoy. Because the bodies of Wukong and others were killed by the earth, and Qingfeng Mingyu buried them elsewhere, so they each got into their own weapons in the state of Yuanshan, and then made the weapons smaller and let Zhang Yang bring them with them. Catgirl is not so lucky, she has nothing to possess. But in the end, Zhen Yuanzi was quite righteous enough. He gave Zhang Yang a golden bell, and Catwoman could temporarily attach herself to the bell to protect her primordial spirit. Originally, Zhang Yang really wanted to taste the taste of ginseng fruit, not to mention immortality, but since he knew the origin of ginseng fruit, he had no appetite to eat it, so he took advantage of the dawn to leave Wuzhuangguan and continue westward. After walking away from Wuzhuangguan for a while, Zhang Yang was really not used to it. Originally there were many people around him, and he didn't feel lonely at all, but now he is suddenly alone, and he is really not used to it. But it's okay, at least there is a white dragon horse to accompany him. Little Beilong, has the breeze and bright moon fed you anything delicious these days? Zhang Yang was bored, so he talked to Beilongma. Master, it's just forage, nothing. Beilongma said absent-mindedly. Zhang Yang chatted with him for a while and it was really boring, so he took out the little Jinling and said to it, Catgirl. Are you there? Jinling shook twice and made a voice. Do you really believe what Zhen Yuanzi said? This question made Zhang Yang stunned for a moment. He smiled and then asked, why do you say that? Catwoman said, even if the secret under the ginseng fruit tree is the body of Buddha, it is not so secret that it will destroy our body. We won't talk about it. Look at the body of the great sage, it is obviously a spiritual stone. How can it be killed by a small land? And let us not even see the corpse, I think there is a ghost inside. Bai Longma watched Zhang Yang from the side, his mouth moved to say something, but he still held back. As long as he said it, he would definitely not end well. Bai Longma, who had been staying in the front yard of Wuzhuangguan, saw Guanyin Bodhisattva and Zhenyuan Daxian descend from the sky last night. After they learned that Zhang Yang had entered under the ginseng fruit tree, their expressions became extremely panic. Later, Guanyin and Zhen Yuanzi discussed it and performed a play to deceive Zhang Yang. After the two discussed it, Zhen Yuanzi said again, I still need the vitality of 1,000 babies, when will you give it to me? Guanyin said, don't worry, my South Blue ginseng fruit tree also wants vitality. I will ask the black bear to send it to you in a few days. Bai Longma knew all this, but he was too scared, so he chose to remain silent. Zhang Yang was walking while thinking, when suddenly a white light appeared in front of him that made him unable to open his eyes. He shouted, who is pretending to be so dazzling? The voice of Guanyin Bodhisattva came from his ear. Zhang Yang, Wuzhuangguan and his party, it's all because of your curiosity, that your catgirl and 3 disciples have lost their bodies, and now you are going to Lingshan alone. The journey is long. I will send another person to you as a Dharma protector. After speaking, she took out a willow leaf from the jade bottle, blew a fairy breath, and the willow leaf turned into a beautiful woman in green clothes. When Zhang Yang saw her, he hurriedly put Jin Ling behind him, and then shouted excitedly, Yer! It's you! However, the excited person was not only Zhang Yang, but also the white dragon horse beside him. He looked at the woman in front of him with tears in his eyes. It was not until after Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva left that he regained his senses, then rushed to Yer and rubbed his head against her body. Yer was a little overwhelmed, looked at Zhang Yang with a look of surprise, and asked, don't take care of your horse. Zhang Yang put Jin Ling back in his clothes, and then ran over to lead the horse. Who knew that the white dragon horse suddenly turned into a human shape and recovered the body of the third prince? He knelt down in front of Zhang Yang and cried and asked, Master, remember what you said to your disciple? Zhang Yang thought about it for a long time and said, are you a good horse? The third prince shook his head and said, Master once said when he subdued his disciples that as long as he followed him to the west, he would definitely meet his sister. Zhang Yang suddenly realized that, he remembered that he did say so, but when he saw the third prince make such an intimate gesture to Yi, he immediately shouted in surprise, She is your sister. The third prince nodded, then stood up and hugged Yi, crying, Sister, I finally see you. In the next second, the third prince saw tears flying across his body and flew to the tree on one side, breaking the thick trunk in the middle. He rolled his eyes and foamed at the mouth, and was already unconscious. Zhang Yang stared blankly at Yi, withdrew his feet, and then said slowly, If you want to take advantage of me, court death. Zhang Yang glanced at the third prince, then at Yi, standing between them, daring not to move. Yi walked up to the third prince, blew at him, turned him into a white horse again, led him in front of Zhang Yang, and said, Bald donkey, get on the horse. Hey! Zhang Yang agreed and immediately got on the horse. At this time, a furry monkey hand stretched out from the placket on his chest, holding a golden hoop, and then he heard Wukong's voice coming from his chest. It came, Master, I think you need this, and I also removed your shut-mouth spell. Chapter 490, The First Meeting of the White Bone Spirit. Really, my good monkey. Zhang Yang was so moved that he took the golden hoop and was about to throw it on Yi-Er's head when she turned around. Zhang Yang had to hide the golden hoop quickly behind him and pretended to whistle. Yi-Er asked, Where's your cat girl? Why haven't you seen her? What's the matter? What's wrong with you looking for her? Zhang Yang still held Jin Ling in his hand. He didn't want these two women to meet, lest he would be unable to fight. But Cat Niang couldn't sit still. She came out of Jin Ling and sat in Zhang Yang's arms, then put her hands around his neck and blew into his ear. Little monk, you are so comfortable to hold. After the cat lady said, she stuck out her tongue and licked Zhang Yang's ears, and then said with a blushing face, I hate it, and you put something from your lower body against someone's butt. Zhang Yang felt like he was about to explode now. The blood all over his body was boiling. He could not wait to bite the cat girl's lips now. But when he looked up, he saw Yi Ersheng staring at him resentfully. He had no choice but to force resisting the desire. I closed my eyes and didn't dare to move. But he didn't move around. But the cat girl started to move around, twisting her butt in Zhang Yang's arms, and saying some ambiguous words. Finally, Yi Er couldn't bear it any longer, and the vine whip in his hand waved and hit Bai Longma's ass. The white dragon horse ran forward like crazy in pain. The two people on the horse swayed, and Zhang Yang cried out with tears, "It's broken. It's about to break." Cat Niang turned a somersault from Zhang Yang's arms, and then stood in front of Yi Er. The two of them looked at each other, their eyes colliding with swords, and flames scattered everywhere. The white dragon horse carried Zhang Yang all the way and ran for a long distance before stopping. Zhang Yang supported his waist and got off the horse's back, and said, "You almost broke your waist." Bai Longma also relieved the pain at this time, and asked Zhang Yang, "Master, why do you think she doesn't recognize me?" Zhang Yang stood tall and asked, "Is she really your sister?" "Isn't your sister Ao Shui? She is Yer. You must be mistaken." Bai Longma shook his head and said, "It's definitely true. I think she was rescued by Guanyin and brought to South Blue. I don't know why she lost her memory." Zhang Yang recalled the first time she saw Yer, and she seemed to ask if Zhang Yang really wasn't Jin Chanzi. It seemed that she still remembered everything about Jin Chanzi. But why can't his younger brother, the third prince, remember it? Afterwards, he comforted Bai Longma and said, "It's all right, it's right to listen to your teacher. If you go further down, maybe she will remember it one day." Bai Longma can only think so. Zhang Yang was right last time, and this time he will definitely not be wrong. He believes his words. "Okay, now let's take 2 steps back. I think they are both going to fight." Zhang Yang walked cautiously towards the meeting, holding his waist, muttering, "It's all my fault for being so handsome. It's really a sin, ah sin." Just as Zhang Yang was walking back, a young, fair-skinned girl emerged from the woods on one side. She looked at Zhang Yang with a basket in her hand and paced towards him. Zhang Yang saw that the beautiful woman's eyes were about to fall out, so he hurriedly greeted her. "Hello, lady benefactor, where are you going?" The girl walked slowly to Zhang Yang and opened the basket, revealing a basket of big drumsticks, still steaming. The girl said nonchalantly, "Do you want something to eat? It's a pity that I only have meat dishes and no vegetarian food here." Zhang Yang unceremoniously grabbed 2 chicken drumsticks and stuffed them into his mouth. He said, "The wine and meat have passed through the intestines, and the Buddha kept it in his heart." "Little girl, where are you from? Why are you carrying a basket in this barren mountain and wild ridge by yourself? What about the drumsticks?" The girl said, "My house is not far ahead. I was going up the mountain to deliver food to my husband, but I ran into you. I thought you might be hungry, so I came over to give you a taste." Zhang Yang nodded, and his mouth was full of oil. He didn't have time to say thank you to the girl, and after he finished eating, he reached into the basket to get it. Zhang Yang got carried away and didn't see the little girl in front of him reaching out to him. The nails on her hand had reached Zhang Yang's head. Xiao Beilong saw this scene and shouted loudly, "Master, be careful." Just when Zhang Yang raised his head, a green vine threw out from the back of his neck and hit the girl's head, directly blowing her head up, and blood splashed on Zhang Yang's face. Zhang Yang wiped off the blood on his face, and turned around to see Cat Niang and Yi Er who were coming towards him. Needless to say, this must have been a good thing for Yi Er. "What are you doing? I'm so merciful. Someone kindly gave me chicken legs to eat. Why are you so violent? Are you going to blow someone's head off?" Zhang Yang said to Yi Er. Yi Er put away the cane, pointed to the pile of bones on the ground, and said, "This is a monster. You bald donkey can't see it clearly with the naked eye. I kindly save your life, but you blame me instead. Of course I know she's a monster, Beigujing, but what does it matter? People are so pretty, and they are kind enough to invite me to eat, so how can you do it?" Zhang Yang said with a look of pity. This time, before Yi Er could speak, Cat Neong walked over with an indifferent expression, gave Zhang Yang a slap, and then got back into Jinling. Zhang Yang touched the burning pain on his face with one hand, picked up Jinling with the other and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with you, cat lady?" Cat Neong ignored him, and Yi-er led the white dragon horse forward and said without looking back, "Follow up." Zhang Yang bowed to the pile of white bones on the ground, and said in his mouth, "I'm sorry, little goblin, you will have to become an old lady and wait for me in front of you, then let's have a good chat, Amitabha, good, good, good." Quote. The bone spirit hiding in the depths of the woods heard Zhang Yang say this. She was very surprised. Why can this monk know what he is going to become next? She became very interested in him at once, and planned to meet him again, but be careful with the woman beside him, she didn't seem to be very easy to deal with. In order to prevent Yi-er from attacking so quickly, Zhang Yang seized the opportunity this time and put a gold hoop on Yi-er's head. Yi-er glanced back at him, then took off the golden hoop and smashed it on Zhang Yang's face. Zhang Yang was smashed with nosebleeds, fell to the ground foaming at the mouth and said to himself, "Guanyin Bodhisattva, give it to me. This golden hoop has the function of a feather duster. How can anyone take it off?" Yi-er walked in front and said, "I follow the Bodhisattva every day, and of course I know how to use this golden hoop mantra, but you still want to trap me. I warn you, bald donkey, it's better to be clear. I'm not your apprentice, just protect the law, don't think about controlling me." Chapter 491, Mingmeng White Bone Essence. Zhang Yang is sad, being taught by a girl like this. He took out a bunch of scraps in his chest, including a ruby gold hoop stick the size of an ear pick, a 9-tooth nail rake the size of a comb, and a shovel the size of a little finger. They put them on the ground, and then began to complain bitterly. "My disciples, you think so hard for the teacher, come back quickly, I can't bear it alone." A golden light suddenly appeared from the golden hoop, the 9-toothed rake and the shovel. Wukong, Baji, and Sha Seng emerged from the inside. The three of them stretched out and looked like they were sleeping soundly. Zhang Yang was unhappy and complained, "I worked hard to get the scriptures and help you to achieve a positive result. You guys are better, sleep comfortably, right? I won't get this scripture." Wukong patted him on the back and comforted, "Master, my old grandson has thought about it. You are both a golden bell and a magic sword. No one can do anything to the fairies along the way. It is more than enough to go to Lingshan with your strength. Now, there are two beauties, Miss Cat and Miss Yi, with you. Are you still not comfortable in this good day?" Baji also said, "That's right, before you find a suitable body for us, it's better for us to cultivate our primordial spirit in the weapon. If we keep coming out like this, it is easy for our primordial spirit to disperse." Zhang Yang didn't believe it, thinking it was an excuse for them to be lazy, and said, "Look at Cat Neong, you only came out to stay with me for so long today. How long have you been out, and you're complaining?" Baji sneered at Isho and said, "Master, are you really stupid or pretending to be stupid? The cat girl is interested in you, can't you see it? When you said that the Beigujing was beautiful, you offended the cat girl, so they gave you a gift." Slap. Zhang Yang didn't fight him and changed the subject. "Then you said, what kind of body do you want? I'll find it for you. I'd rather stay with 3 monsters than with Yer, it's too depressing, _ Wukong said, "The physical body is not so easy to find. Think about it, if you deprive someone of the physical body, isn't it a bad thing to kill people? If you use the physical body of a dying person, no one is willing to use it. The physical bodies of the 2 junior brothers are easy to find, but my old grandson has no physical body. Where can you find a spiritual stone for me?" It's hard to say something public, and the best way at present is to let them all stay in the weapons safely. But when he thought of the spirit stone, Zhang Yang thought of a solution, and he asked, "Monkey, you jumped out of the stone. After you jumped out, isn't there still some debris left on the stone? I'll find it and give it to you. How about you put it together in the flesh?" When he mentioned Wagwoshan Wukong, he felt uncomfortable. He shook his head and said, "It's long gone, you won't be able to find it, so let's just go. I'm also quite comfortable in the golden hoop." Seeing that Zhang Yang hadn't followed and was still chatting with the primordial spirits of his disciples, Yer stopped and yelled at him, "Bald donkey. If you don't leave, I'll beat you." Then the catgirl's voice came from Zhang Yang, "You dare to beat him?" Zhang Yang waved his hand and hurriedly got up from the ground, put away the 3 small weapons, and said as he walked, "You guys are making my ears hurt, I'm not here. Walking on the road is a little boring, and he can usually joke with his apprentices and say some dirty jokes. Now there is a leaf in front of him, and he doesn't know what to say if he wants to find something in common." The two walked in silence for a while, and met an old grandmother in front of them who staggered to greet them, still muttering something. It wasn't until she walked in that it became clear that she was reciting, "Where is my daughter-in-law?" Finally someone who could talk came. Zhang Yang jumped off the horse, rushed to the old grandmother, grabbed her hand and said to her, "I know you are a bone spirit, grab me and go." The white bone spirit was stunned for a long time, and said, "You must have recognized the wrong person, I am not a goblin." Seeing that Yi was about to come over, Zhang Yang said anxiously to her, "Hurry up and stop dawdling, you can live forever by eating my meat. After this village, there will be no such shop, you can't miss this opportunity. Come on, go faster." Bei Gujing was utterly confused by him, but she originally came to arrest Tang Seng. Since he took the initiative to request, she was no longer polite, and turned Zhang Yang back into the Beigu cave as a wind. Zhang Yang, who landed safely, found a stone stool and sat down and sighed. He stroked his head with his hands, looking groggy and wanting to sleep. The bone spirit observed outside the cave for a while, made sure no one was following, and then sealed the entrance of the cave before entering. Seeing Zhang Yang's lack of energy lying on the table, she walked over and asked, "Are you really a Tang monk? How could you let me arrest you? It's too proactive." Zhang Yang raised his head and looked at her. The white bone spirit had already turned into its original form, just a bone without flesh and blood, but he couldn't get out of his fear at all, sighed and said, "I'm too tired, so let you catch me here to rest, you don't even know what I've been through these days." The bone spirit shook his head, "Of course I don't know, and I'm not by your side." Zhang Yang stared at her and smiled for a while, then said, "Are you sure you're not with me? I've never seen anyone take chicken legs for monks to eat. You must know that I eat meat before giving them chicken legs. If you don't listen, whoever said that, either he has been following me for a long time and still wants to lie to me, too tender." Bei Gujing was exposed by Zhang Yang, so he had to confess, "It's true that I've been following you for a long time, what a smart monk." Zhang Yang smiled bitterly, "It's not good to be too smart. If you are too smart, you will know a lot of things that you shouldn't know. I have been thinking about whether I should go to learn the scriptures for the past 2 days, which means nothing to me at all." "Isn't this your destiny? I heard that Guanyin Bodhisattva asked you to learn the scriptures. How dare you not listen to her words?" Bei Gujing said. "This is Jin Chanzi's fate, Tang Seng's fate, not my Zhang Yang's fate," Zhang Yang said. "You are not Tang Seng. Then you dare to let me arrest you? Are you not afraid that I will kill you?" said the white bone spirit. "If I'm afraid of you, what else can I learn? Tell you, little girl, I'm not afraid of any goblins along the way. If there's a goblin who can beat me, I'll be too happy." Zhang Yang said. "It seems that I can't eat you anymore," Bei Gujing said disappointedly. "I still want to live forever. Don't be discouraged, wait for me to relax for 2 days and think about some things before talking about it," Zhang Yang said. The white bone spirit nodded. "Then you can think about it here, I have to go out for a walk, I'm so hungry." Zhang Yang grabbed her and asked, "Are you cannibals?" The white bone spirit nodded. "Can't you?" Zhang Yang said. "Don't eat people, don't do bad things, just be a hard-working and positive goblin." Chapter 492, Secret Party. The bone spirit shook his head and said, "I don't eat people, I just drink human blood, otherwise how can I live?" Zhang Yang said, "Will you drink people to death?" The bone spirit said, "I only drink a little at a time, and I won't die." Zhang Yang nodded, then rolled up his sleeves, exposed his arms, and said, then come and drink me, but be gentle, I'm afraid of pain. Bai Gujing thought that Zhang Yang was joking and said, I don't believe it. Are you testing me? If I drink blood, you will kill me. Then I choose not to drink it. Zhang Yangti was amused by her and asked, can you tell me how old you are? Bai Gujing snapped his fingers and figured it out, then replied, it's almost 500 years. 500 years. Zhang Yang sighed in his heart that her lifespan will soon come to an end. If she doesn't eat panpeach or ginseng fruit to prolong her life, this white bone essence will not live long. He thought about it and said, drink some of my blood first. I am the protagonist halo, and I won't die easily. What is the protagonist halo? Bai Gujing didn't bite down, just asked, are you sure you won't hurt me? Anyway, it means that I am very powerful. Zhang Yang said, I will not hurt you. As far as I know, you seem to be the only monster without a background in Journey to the West. I have always been sympathetic to the disadvantaged. The bone spirit didn't understand what he was talking about, and was still a little worried about him, so he asked, I'm just a white bone, I don't even have an appearance, how can you feed me blood? Do you want me to become a beautiful girl? After I look like this, will you feed me again? Zhang Yang shook his head, put his hand in front of her mouth, and said, I like you just like you. There is no outward appearance, only a pure heart. Come on, I will bear it. Bai Gujing hesitated for a while, and finally opened his mouth and bit on Zhang Yang's arm, and then sucked so hard, Zhang Yang felt cold all over, and fainted as soon as his eyes darkened. The Bai Gujing sucked almost half of Zhang Yang's blood, enough to kill him. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and sat beside Zhang Yang, stroking his face with her hands. Such a naive monk makes me feel a little distressed. I can't swallow your blood. Bai Yujing said to himself, if you are also a white bone, we can be together. At this time, a woman's voice came from Zhang Yang. It's ridiculous that you dare to be with him without looking in the mirror to see yourself. Bai Yujing was taken aback, and hurriedly stood up to stay away from Zhang Yang, and then asked, who are you? At this time, Baji's voice also came out. Don't be afraid, if we want to kill you, you have already died a dozen times. Sha Seng also said, Master doesn't want to kill you, and we won't do it either. Wukong also said, 80% of the time it's because the Master has a crush on you, hee. This series of strangers, voices rang out in the cave, and the white bone spirit turned out a white bone knife from his hand and shouted to Zhang Yang, who are you? Don't be sneaky, show your true shape. I saw that Zhang Yang was steaming, and 3 huge monsters gradually transformed from him. One was a huge monkey, the other was a huge wild boar, and the other looked like a savage. These 3 people emerged from Zhang Yang's body. It came out, exuding an irresistible demonic aura. When Bai Gujing's hand softened, the knife fell to the ground and shattered into 2 halves. She realized how wise it was that she didn't kill Zhang Yang just now, otherwise she wouldn't know how she died now. After that, Wukong and the other 3 got back into Zhang Yang's body again, and then Catgirl's voice came out again. Let me introduce you, they are Zhang Yang's 3 apprentices, Monkey King, Tianpeng Marshal Zhu Baji, Roller Blind Admiral Sha Wujing. Quote. The white bone spirit asked again, what about you? Cat Niang said coldly, I'm his fiancé, Zhang Yang didn't know how long he had been unconscious. When he woke up, he almost fell to the ground when he saw people surrounded by people. He rubbed his eyes and asked, how did you guys come out? Wukong nibbled at the peaches. He didn't know where they came from and said, Master, isn't that what you meant? Find a quiet place and ask me to come out and discuss the plan for taking the scriptures. Baji ate the banana and said, we all know that the girl Yara was sent by Guanyin to watch over us, and now that she's gone, we'll come out naturally. Zhang Yang gave them a thumbs up and said, I really have a good understanding of each other. As expected of my apprentice, I always feel uncomfortable when she is next to me, just like Guanyin in front of me. By the way, what about Bai Gujing? Cat Niang said angrily, I was beaten to death. Zhang Yang stared at her and asked, what? You beat her to death? Sha Seng explained, Master, Bai Gujing went to boil water for us to make tea, and she also prepared these fruits. Zhang Yang nodded, then he was relieved, and then complained to Cat Niang, "Why are you lying to me, little rascal?" Catgirl ignored him and turned her head away. Zhang Yang smiled awkwardly, and then said, "Since everyone is here, I want to ask you to discuss whether to take this sutra or not. About the secret under the ginseng fruit tree, after Cat Niang told me, I have been thinking about it. What is the problem? And to find out, it is impossible to go back to Wuzhuangguan, but I want to go to South Blue, there must be ginseng fruit trees in Luojia Mountain." Quote. Wukong waved his hand and said, "Don't dream, the bamboo forest in South Blue is guarded by black bears. No one can enter, not to mention that you enter so abruptly, won't people feel suspicious?" At this time, Bai Ji Yujing came with tea, and after pouring some tea for them, he stood aside at a loss. In front of her are several bigwigs from the God realm and the Demon realm, and she is all nervous now. But after hearing a few of them talk about the Wuzhuang temple, she couldn't help but say, that I seem to know something about ginseng fruit. Zhang Yang hurriedly pulled her to sit beside him and asked, "How did you know?" Bai Gujing replied, "When I followed you, I hid in the front yard of Wuzhuang temple with the white horse. Later, when you went down into the tree, I saw Guanyin Bodhisattva and Zhenyuan Daxian talking secretly, and heard something about the ginseng fruit tree." Quote. Wukong sneered and shouted, "You little goblin who lies all the time, are you following me? My old grandson doesn't know. Stop bluffing here, say. Who are you?" In front of her is the Demon King, Sun Wukong. How dare she say anything to panic? So scared that tears are about to come out, she whispered, "I didn't lie, your horse should have heard it too, you can ask him." Chapter 493, Plan. In fact, it's not surprising that Wukong thinks that the white bone spirit is lying, because the white bone spirit is a bit different from other fairies. She is a kind of ghost that turns from a bone into a demon, which is essentially different from a biological creature. So she followed Zhang Yang all the way but was not discovered by Wukong, which was actually the reason for her body constitution. And the reason why she followed Zhang Yang was nothing more than wanting to drink his blood. The flesh and blood of people who took the scriptures can live forever, who wouldn't be moved. "Since when did you follow me?" Zhang Yang asked. "It was when you separated from them. I thought I had a chance to attack, but another woman came from behind, so I endured it and waited until now." The woman Bai Gujing said was Yer. "Okay, let's talk about what you heard Guanyin and Zhenyuanzi say." Catwoman didn't want Zhang Yang and Bai Gujing to talk any longer, so she interrupted. So Bai Gujing explained the conversation between Guanyin Bodhisattva and Zhenyuan Daxian she overheard, and the atmosphere solidified in an instant. He cannot accept such a god and Buddha. "If you want me to tell you, I will go all the way to the west and screw off that Tathagata's head," Wukong said. "You said it lightly, other people's Buddha, you are a monkey, what else do you want to do?" Zhang Yang rolled his eyes at him and said, "People can't beat the sky, I don't advocate doing this, I'm cowardly." At this time, Baji came up with an idea, "Do you want to unite with all the demon worlds? Let's fight again together." Zhang Yang shook his head again. These people didn't know, but Zhang Yang knew. Most of them were pets and mounts of immortals, and there were a lot of monsters with backgrounds. To win them over was like killing them. Wukong also didn't think Baji's idea was a good idea. He said coldly, "I think when my old grandson made a lot of trouble in the Tiangong and was pressed down by the Tathagata to the foot of Wuji Mountain for 500 years, none of my sworn brothers ever came to see me, a group of beast, blind old grandson." Zhang Yang comforted, "Don't be too angry, this world is like this, there are many snobbish people. When you are powerful and powerful, all the friends around you will come to you, but when you are down, who will be your brother? You want to be open. Fortunately, I saw their true colors early, so as not to be deceived all the time. I now suspect that you were coaxed by others when you started making troubles in the heavenly palace." Wu Qi sighed silently, keeping his mouth tightly closed, and the air from his nostrils could breathe fire. After he was kicked out of Xiaoyu Sangsingdong by Bodhi Patriarch, he returned to Wagwo Mountain, made friends, and worshipped 6 demon kings. Among them, the leader is the Pingtian Great Sage Bull Demon King. His strength is very strong. It can be said that he surpasses Wukong. The Demon King is a flood demon with extremely strong water, and Wukong's biggest disadvantage is the water battle. Therefore, Wukong can't beat him in the water. The third place is the Great Saint Peng Demon King of Huntian, whose flying ability is better than that of Wukong's somersault cloud. Therefore, Wukong also has to call him the third brother. The fourth is the King of Yishan, the Lion and Camel King, who is proficient in the method of moving mountains. The fifth is called the Great Sage of Ventilation, the Macaque King, who is erratic and haunted. The sixth is the Great Exorcism. King Sheng Yutao, known as Exorcism, shows that even gods avoid 3 points. Therefore, it can also be ranked in front of the monkey. The last one is Sun Wukong, the Great Sage of the Sky, and the other elder brothers encouraged him to be better than the sky, so the monkey was proud and erected a banner, the Great Sage of the Sky. It disturbed the Jade Emperor in the sky and brought disaster. In the final analysis, he was not young enough, and he was hurt because he was not deep enough, so Wukong could only be sullen, and couldn't blame others. But what annoyed him the most was that in the 500 years he had been oppressed, no one had come to see him, and when he returned to Wagwo Mountain, the monkeys who had been crossed out by him in the Book of Life and Death blamed them one after another. Wukong finally told everyone his grievances. He didn't understand why the monkeys didn't accept the immortality that everyone was looking for. Hearing this, Zhang Yang said, "Let me express my opinion. I don't think everyone needs immortality, and life begins and ends, so this is perfect. Think about it, those monkeys never grow old. The little monkeys in Wagwo Mountain grow up, then become adults, and finally grow old until they die. What a temptation for those immortal monkeys. They have witnessed the life and death of one monkey after another. They are all tired. The only thing they have not experienced in the world is death, and they can't die even if they want to die. What a pain." After some words, Wukong felt ashamed. He lowered his head and said, "It seems that those monkeys really think that I am not worthy of being a king, so they found a new monkey king." Zhang Yang felt that something was wrong when he heard it, and he asked, "The new monkey king? What is he like? Did he have 6 ears?" Wukong raised his head, widened his eyes and asked, "You know what? Sure enough, it's a 6-eared macaque. I guess you had a fight with someone, and the result was a draw, right?" Zhang Yang asked. "That monkey's ability is exactly the same as mine, and my old grandson really can't beat it," Wukong said. Zhang Yang waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about this for now, I will talk to you alone later. Now let's talk about the matter of studying scriptures in the West. Although I don't want to go, I have to go home." Guanyin said that they have time and space. "The door, I believe that thing may be useful, no matter what the probability is, I want to give it a try." Quote. The cat girl asked, "What about the ginseng fruit? Are they allowed to mutilate the baby?" At this moment, Bajia complained, "It's all to blame that the Jade Emperor is a cheapskate who hid all the peaches. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if the ginseng fruit tree is cut down." Zhang Yang suddenly had a bold idea in his mind. He said, "How about we go to the sky? Let's go and see what's going on in the peach garden. Or steal 2 peaches, take the peach cores to South Blue, and take the bamboo groves. It's chopped up, how about the whole planted peaches?" Sha Seng, who had not spoken, said, "Master, you are a capital crime. Just like the crime committed by the elder brother back then, the Jade Emperor will not spare you. So, we have to find someone who can talk to the Jade Emperor." Zhang Yang said, "With her backing us up, the Jade Emperor will not mess around." "You mean Tathagata Buddha?" Baji asked. "It's too high, I mean Guanyin Bodhisattva." Zhang Yang said, "If he doesn't give face to Bodhisattva, it means he doesn't give face to Buddha. So next, I will tell you about my plan. I hope to solve the problem of pan peach and the problem of ginseng fruit. You can see if it works." Chapter 494. The plan that feels very unreliable. Zhang Yang meant to go to South Blue to find Guanyin Bodhisattva first, and told her that she already knew the secret of the ginseng fruit tree, and told her firmly that it was wrong to do so. Then let Wukong go to his 6 brothers again, and try to encourage them to make trouble again in the Tiangong. It's better to go to the place of Pan Taoyuan and destroy it, so that there will be no one if there are fewer peaches. Perceive something. When the heaven was in chaos, Zhang Yang sneaked into Pan Dao again, picked a few peaches and gave the peach pits to Guanyin, asking her to pull up the ginseng fruit trees in South Blue and plant them. As for the 6 great sages, if they can escape after the fight, they will be considered powerful. If they cannot escape, they will be arrested. If they correct Wukong to the Jade Emperor, then they will ask Guanyin Bodhisattva to come forward and say that Wukong has been with her and has no time at all. Go to the so-called 6 saints. However, in order to make things more reasonable, Zhang Yang wanted to compete with Wukong in acting. They pretended to be enemies, and then Wukong went to South Blue to complain to Guanyin, so that no doubts would be raised. Zhang Yang excitedly told them the plan he had conceived in his mind, but everyone stared at him in surprise and did not speak. What's wrong with you? Zhang Yang asked in confusion. Is there anything I don't understand? Raise your hands to answer any questions. As a result, everyone raised their hands. Zhang Yang nodded in satisfaction, and said one by one, Catgirl, let's start with you. Cat Niang asked, are you serious? Havoc in the Heavenly Palace is not a joke, you have figured it out. Although it is indeed dangerous to do this, Zhang Yang can't think of any other good way, and since he came to journey to the west, he doesn't seem to have done anything earth-shattering. This time he wanted to try it, so he nodded. The next question was Wukong. The 6 great sages are not easy to fool. When my grandson made a riot in the Tiangong, none of them came out to help me. They were all treacherous villains who made them riot in the Tiangong. Courage. Zhang Yang hasn't figured out how to deal with this problem, he said. The way is thought up by people, and I will definitely make them fight with the gods in the sky. Then Baji asked, if the 6 great sages make trouble in the heavenly palace, will the monkeys in Wagwo Mountain be involved? Zhang Yang said, this needs to be considered. Sha Seng should be similar to Baji's question. After listening to Zhang Yang's answer, she put her hand down. There was only one bone spirit left, and she asked, you won't kill me, will you? Why discuss these matters in front of me? What? I'm not with you again. Zhang Yang touched her skull and said, you will follow me in the future, and when we settle this matter, we will take you to learn the scriptures. As the monster with the least background in Journey to the West, Zhang Yang is still very sympathetic to her. Anyway, unless Zhang Yang voluntarily, she really can't hurt him. The way to learn the scriptures is too boring, and it is quite relieved to bring a few more goblins. Bai Gujing didn't know what to say. She seemed to be involved in a big turmoil for no reason, and she was helpless. Catgirl has been observing Zhang Yang and Bai Gujing since just now. Although Zhang Yang said from the beginning that she looks like Lin He Xiaoyu, it was only his wishful thinking. She was just a cat demon and could not help herself. Cat demon. As for her fiancé who kept saying that she was Zhang Yang, she was just joking, saying the most impossible things. Because she knew that she would not end well, and this time the matter was over, she might have to say goodbye to him. Zhang Yang saw Cat Niang staring blankly at Bai Ji Yujing. He thought she was jealous, and hurriedly touched her hand and said, my good cat girl, would you like to sit in my arms again? Catgirl forced a smile from her face and said, hurry up and get down to business, how are you going to implement your plan? Zhang Yang noticed that the expression on her face was not right, and knew that it was not the time to be joking, so he thought about it and said, first of all, I will go to South Blue and ask Guanyin Bodhisattva to clarify my attitude towards the ginseng fruit tree. I must convince her and we work together. Then come back here, let the white bone spirit cooperate with us to act, which made me and Wukong master and apprentice disagree. He went to South Blue to complain to Guanyin Bodhisattva in a rage. Of course, not really, because next we should go to Wagwoshan looking for the protagonists of the havoc in the heavenly palace. Wukong pretended to return from studying scriptures in the west and invited them to drink in the sky. I don't believe that these good-faced people would not be moved. On the other hand, Baji and Shaseng pretended to be informers and told the guards at Nantianmen that a monster had attacked the door and told them call more reinforcements to ambush ahead of time. In this way, I don't believe that they can't fight. It's better to destroy all 6 shambags and avenge my monkey. After that, the catgirl sneaked into the Pantao garden and stole a few peaches, and you were done. As soon as Zhang Yang's plan was finished, impossible expressions appeared on everyone's faces. Cat Niang asked, "We've all gone to work, what are you doing?" Zhang Yang said confidently, "My motherfucker can't fly, otherwise I would like to go to the sky to see it." Wukong said, "I'm afraid I can't do it separately. At present, the bodies of me, my juniors, and the cat girl are gone, so I can't stay outside for a long time, and it's also very dangerous." "Not us." Zhang Yang was dumbfounded and asked, "So I have to do all these things alone?" Everyone nodded. Cat Niang said, "Besides, I don't know where Pantao Garden is. You really have to do this alone. First go to South Blue, then Wagwo Mountain, then Nantianmen, then Pantao Garden, and then..." "Stop." Zhang Yang rubbed his temples with his hands, squinted his eyes in pain, and said to himself, "You really dug a hole for yourself." He thought about it for a while, and finally slapped the stone table with his hand, stood up and said aggressively, "Just do it. I still don't believe it." Outside the bone cave, a girl in green clothes walked here with a white horse. She found that the weeds here were never particularly lush, and there was a dead silence around, so she stopped. Bai Longma looked at his elder sister, but couldn't help but shout, "Ao Shui." Yi looked back at him and asked, "I'm really that much like your sister?" Bai Longma nodded vigorously. "I can't smell the smell of our dragon clan." "I'm sure you are my eldest sister, Ao Shui." Yi said. "Then why don't I have long horns? I was born as a willow leaf in the jade vase of the Bodhisattva." "You must be mistaken. Your sister may be somewhere else, so don't call me sister or Ao Shui is gone." Chapter 495, Going to South Blue. Bai Longma looked at Yi unfamiliar eyes, but he still refused to give up and asked, "Then do you remember Jin Chanzi?" Golden Cicada. When Yi heard the name of this person, a lot of pictures would flash in his mind, but he knew more that he was the one who said it from the mouth of Guanyin Bodhisattva. The person who dared to argue with the Buddha was finally demoted by the Buddha. The story of descending to the mortal world and becoming immortal. Although many people are saying that Jin Chanzi is an ignorant fool, Yi doesn't think so in her heart. She has never seen him, but she thinks he is a hero, because there is no other person in the world who dares to dare. Anyone who argues with the Buddha in person. No. Do not have it. A picture suddenly flashed in Yi mind. A monk was holding a cat demon, blood left from his neck. In front of them was Guanyin Bodhisattva. Guanyin Bodhisattva said that he would bring the cat demon back to South Blue to teach her be a human again. But the monk coldly refused. Although the tone of his speech was very flat and there was no brilliance in his eyes, he dared to oppose Guanyin Bodhisattva. This person is Zhang Yang. If it is the Tathagata Buddha, he should be like this. It's important to find your master first, and we'll talk about these things later. Soon, Yi broke away from her fantasy. Zhang Yang's life or death was uncertain at the moment, and she couldn't let him die. The White Bone Cave was sealed by the White Bone Spirit with magic, and it was impossible for ordinary people to find it. However, the land was dead and the grass was not violent. Yi guessed that there were goblins living here. Just when she was about to find the entrance of the goblin's hole, she saw a hole appeared in the cave on the side, and Zhang Yang struttingly walked out from the inside with an apple. After Zhang Yang came out, he saw the white dragon horse and Yi outside. He almost petrified. When he thought that the White Bone Spirit was about to come out, he hurriedly took a few steps back to block the door of the cave, twisting his whole body, pretending to be struggling and shouting, "Miss Yi, run away, this White Bone Spirit is extremely ferocious, I can't stand it anymore." The White Bone Spirit was about to come out behind, and was startled by Zhang Yang's movement, but she quickly realized what was going on, and turned into smoke and escaped. After twisting wildly for a while, Zhang saw that Yi didn't react, and the Beigujing had also left, so he stopped, rubbed his nose and asked, She scared away when she saw you. You are amazing. Yer had already known that Zhang had good intentions towards Bai Ji, so she turned one eye and closed the other, as long as he was fine. So she pointed to the white dragon horse and said, Come up, don't delay the way to learn the scriptures. Miss Yer, how long have you been here? Zhang asked with a guilty conscience. He was afraid that she had been eavesdropping on the door for a long time. Just here, what's wrong? Yer turned her head and asked, Is it bothering you? No. Zhang hurriedly waved his hand. We didn't do anything, let's hurry up. Yi is also a character who doesn't talk much, so she has to head forward and walk forward. I don't know how long I have walked, the surrounding woods are flourishing, and they have come to the deep mountains. Zhang counted the time in his heart. It was almost time for the bone spirit to appear, so he raised his head and looked around. Sure enough, he saw the old man turned into the bone spirit not far ahead. Although Yi kept walking with her head down, she could still sense someone coming in front of her, so she raised her head, and it was obvious that the old man in front was a goblin. Although Yi doesn't have the fiery eyes of Sun Wukong, but she has been soaking in the jade bottle all the year round, her body is full of fairy energy, and she is very sensitive to any smell in the mortal world, so she can easily distinguish who is a demon and who is a human. After recognizing that it was the same monster that she killed just now, Yi didn't plan to do anything, and completely ignored her. Anyway, she knew that Zhang could come out of her hole alive, so there must be something strange about the two of them. This time, the white bone spirit turned into an old man, and while walking towards them, he muttered, Where is my daughter-in-law? Where is my wife? Seeing that Yi led the horse and walked past Bai Gujing hurriedly grabbed Zhang trouser legs and asked, Elder, have you seen my daughter-in-law and wife? Zhang hurriedly dismounted, knelt in front of the old man, and started his performance. Master, I am really sorry, the two women in your family were beaten to death by my extremely murderous guardian. You go to her, don't come to me, this has nothing to do with me. Bai Gujing hurried to Yi again and asked her if she had seen it before. But Yi ignored her, staring at Zhang and asked impatiently, Is it interesting? What are you two doing here? Zhang felt guilty and asked hesitantly, Acting? What? Why can't I understand what you're talking about? You know she's a white bone spirit, and you still act together in front of me, do you think I'm a fool? Yi said with a dark face, I don't know what you discussed. But I know you don't have a good opinion of me, but this is the order of Guanyin Bodhisattva. If you don't want to see me, I can find a cloth to cover myself. It was a little embarrassing to say something public, and he didn't plan to act anymore. Anyway, Yi was also a member of the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, so it shouldn't matter if he knew it. So Zhang pulled the white bone spirit over and said to Yi, Don't get me wrong, it's not against you. We have important things to do, it's very dangerous, and it may fail, but I don't want to involve you, you're innocent of. Yi stared into his eyes and asked, What is it? Is it more important than learning from scriptures? Zhang nodded affirmatively. When I finish this matter, I will go to Shishan with you, wait for me, trust me. In the end, Yi stayed in the white bone cave. She didn't know why she believed this monk, and she didn't know how long it would take for him to come back. She also violated the wishes of Guanyin Bodhisattva and did not guard him to study the scriptures, but none of these matters, she chose to believe him and wait for him to come back. The white dragon horse turned into a white dragon, Zhang rode on his back, and Luffy went to South Blue like this. This trip will take several days to fly, and then I will go to Wagwo Mountain. Although Zhang feels very tired, when he thinks of the miserable babies crying under the ginseng fruit tree, he feels that it doesn't matter how hard he is. South Blue Luojia Mountain. At this time Guanyin Bodhisattva had already reached Zhang and flew towards her. She felt that it was still related to the Wuzhuang temple. Did he know the details? Or just want to get a body for the apprentices? Guanyin couldn't guess what Zhang was thinking. He had too much uncontrollability, and was exactly the same as Jin Chanzi back then. She thought that perhaps the person who took the scriptures should find another one. Chapter 496, Dragon Clan. In order to allow the apprentices and the cat girl to breathe at any time, Zhang Yang hung Jin Ling on his waist, enlarged the golden hoop, the 9-toothed nail rake, and the crescent shovel and tied them on his back. At first glance, he looked like a warrior monk. The little white dragon has been flying for 2 days and 2 nights in a row, and now it is not far from South Blue, so Zhang Yang asked him to go down and rest for a while. When he got to the ground, the little white dragon turned into a white dragon horse, and Zhang Yang was not willing to sit, so he led him all the way. I don't know what the name of this mountain is, but the auspicious light can be seen, which should be the reason for the distance from Luojia mountain. Bai Longma walked for a while and said to Zhang Yang, "Master, something is wrong. I seem to smell the smell of the dragon compatriots around me." Dragon Clan. Zhang Yang didn't pay much attention to it. This place is very close to South Blue, so it is normal to have Dragon Clan. I just find it strange that the dragons rarely go ashore, and this is not a sea area. How can there be dragons here? Bai Longma is very vigilant, and he doesn't have a good impression of the South Blue dragons, so he said, "Anyway, we should be careful in everything." Understood. Zhang Yang said, "By the way, your flying speed is still not as fast as that of a monkey. I thought I would reach South Blue at once, but it took 2 days to fly." Bai Longma said, "Of course I'm not as good as Senior Brother's somersault cloud. If it weren't for the somersault cloud being difficult to tame, Master, you can fly with it." I still don't believe it. Zhang Yang tapped the golden hoop, and then shouted, "Wukong, borrow your somersault cloud to play with." Wukong's voice came from the golden cudgel, "Don't blame my grandson if something happens." Zhang Yang asked disdainfully, "What else could happen to me?" Wukong said, "This somersault cloud has a big temper. If it realizes that you are not a powerful person, it will take you to Zhouzhangtian and then fall down. My grandson was knocked down the first time he drove it. It's okay. It's a stone monkey, or it'll be smashed to pieces." Zhouzhangtian. Zhang Yang looked up at the cloudless sky and said with a guilty conscience, "Forget it, why do you want to do it so fast? Now that the pace of life is so fast, we should slow down a little bit, it's almost South Blue." Quote. In this way, Zhang Yang walked for a while and felt a little hungry. He let the white dragon horse wait for him and went into the woods to hunt. It is rare to be able to use the weapons of the 3 disciples. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Start with the golden hoop. Zhang Yang pulled out the golden hoop stick from his back, and then played randomly. Wukong's golden cudgel is the iron used in East Blue, Estinghai during the flood control period of Dayu. Zhang Yang got tired after playing for a while, so he started looking for hares and goats in the woods, only to hear the sound of children crying in the woods. Zhang Yang followed the sound and looked for it, and saw a 5 or 6-year-old boy squatting on the ground in an open space, crying, and in front of the boy was a big tiger with its teeth and claws. Seeing that it was finally time for Zhang Yang to show off, he rushed over and jumped out of the grass, holding the golden cudgel in one hand and pointing at the big tiger, shouting loudly, "Bah! Eat my old Zhang's stick." The tiger glanced at the child on the ground, then at Zhang Yang, and finally turned his head to eat the meaty one. After digging his hind legs back a few times, he wanted to charge towards Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang shouted, "Golden hoop, kill him." I don't know if it was because Zhang Yang's shouting was too tiring, but Jin Hoop didn't respond. Just as the tiger opened a slap as big as Zhang Yang's head and grabbed him, a red flame ignited on the surface of the golden hoop, and the flame finally transformed into Wukong's real body. He came out of the golden cudgel and kicked the tiger on the head. The tiger kicked off 2 of its teeth. It flipped and hit a big tree on the side, then fell to the ground, and finally got up and left in a daze. Wukong finished his work and returned to the golden hoop. Zhang Yang lost his interest. It seemed that both the golden hoop stick and the somersault cloud only listened to the master's words. He put the stick back in his back, walked over to the little boy, and squatted down to look at him. "Where are you from?" Why are you alone in this mountain? Zhang Yang asked. I'm from a fishing village at the bottom of the mountain. I went up the mountain to pick mushrooms, but I met a big tiger. The little boy cried and said, can you take me down the mountain? Okay, Zhang Yang said and stretched out his hand to pull him up, but the hand reached out in midair and stopped. Then he turned his head slowly, and saw a huge black claw grasping the gold around Zhang Yang's body on the bell. Behind him was a black dragon with fire-breathing eyes. His mouth was tearing and making a low voice. His claws were also working hard, but unfortunately he couldn't crush the golden bell. At this time, a green smoke emerged from the nine-toothed nail rake behind Zhang Yang, and finally transformed into a huge human-shaped pig demon. One hand grabbed the claw arm of the black dragon, and the other hand closed into the shape of a hand knife and swung it hard. Cut off the black dragon's claws. The blood of Yinhong was sprayed from the broken arm, and the black dragon let out a scream and took 2 steps back, smashing the surrounding trees. Then it refused to admit defeat, opened its mouth, and spewed out a black flame from its mouth. And Baji also took a deep breath, and then spit out the water from the Tianhe from his stomach, instantly extinguishing the black fire, and the water column knocked the black dragon to the ground. Zhang Yang turned around and pulled the child up, then said to Hailong, don't ask what your grandfather Zhang is doing. You dare to come to trouble me alone. Tell me, who instructed you? Tell me for your forgiveness you don't die. The black dragon sneered unexpectedly, and it asked, how did you know that I had one? As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Yang saw that the little boy in front of him took out a knife made of fish bones from nowhere, and stabbed it in Zhang Yang's stomach. Because of the close distance, the golden bell hood did not come into play. But none of Zhang Yang's 3 apprentices were jealous. A huge hand came out of the crescent shovel, walked around behind Zhang Yang, grabbed the little boy's hand, and then hit the little boy with his fist with the other hand. On his head, he punched his head. The headless little boy staggered back 2 steps, then fell to the ground, his body turned into a headless crab. Zhang Yang turned around and asked Hailong, what else? This trick is like killing me. I advise you not to test my patience. Seeing that Zhang Yang was not alone, Hailong hurriedly flew up and ran away, but before he could reach a height of 10 meters, he was pinched by the neck of the little white dragon who had just arrived, and fell to the ground ruthlessly. The little white dragon flew down and stepped on the black dragon's head with his claws, and said viciously, the black briquettes of South Blue, long time no see. Chapter 497, Raid. Hailong recognized at a glance that the 3rd prince of West Blue was the one who stepped on his feet, and his expression became sharp and resentful in a blink of an eye. He said, West Blue's little white face, he is doing well, he is a horse and ride for others, do you remember don't remember being a dragon? The two met on the birthday of the West Blue Dragon King. At that time, the 3rd prince of West Blue was still a child, and Hailong was also a child, but their identities were different. One was the son of the West Blue Dragon King and the other was the son of the South Blue Dragon King. Servant. In order to celebrate the birthday of the West Blue Dragon King, the dragons from the other 3 sea areas will send representatives to perform, and the rest of the sea areas will send their most powerful dragon warriors, but when the South Blue performance, the people sent surprise everyone. Everyone was whispering why a child was sent here. It is estimated that he did not even have the ability to transform into a dragon. Some people said that South Blue was demonstrating against the other 3 seas and so on. It was Hailong who appeared on the stage. His face showed the sophistication that is rare in children, and his arrogant appearance made everyone present black-face. Hailong is still a young child, but his ability is not small. He can easily transform into Jackie Chan, and he can also rain and seek wind, and fly through the clouds. Everyone sees that a dragon child in South Blue has such ability, so those warriors in South Blue, aren't they more than capable? Everyone stood up and applauded for him. It was this time that the 3rd prince sitting in the audience met Hailong. During the dinner after the event, when he went to Hailong with adoration and awe, what he got in return was Hailong's indifference and ignorance. He was obviously a servant, but he showed how arrogant he was. The 3rd prince was upset, and he kept the black dragon in his heart from then on. One day he would defeat him. But things backfired. Every time the dragon races compete, the third prince loses to the black dragon, again and again without exception, until the third prince accompanies Zhang Yang to study scriptures. His wish has not been realized. I'm practicing, you can say whatever you want, Xiao Beilong said indifferently. Zhang Yang patted a bit of blood on his body, then walked up to Hailong and asked calmly, I'll give you one last chance. Who sent you here? Tell me and spare you not to die. Hailong said, you don't know who you are fighting against, you have no good end. Zhang Yang was happy when he heard it. He said, there are only a few powerful people. Since you have said it all, then I will not embarrass you. Xiao Beilong asked, Master, what should he do? Zhang Yang said, go to Luojia Mountain now, I can't wait. After that, Xiao Beilong dragged Zhang Yang to the sea area. He looked back at the black dragon lying on the ground, threw down the sentence, I'll wait until I come back and have a good match with you, and left. Above the sea, Xiao Beilong asked, Master, why are you so anxious? Zhang Yang squinted his eyes, looked at the thick fog that suddenly rose around the sea, and murmured, I feel flustered, the longer it drags on, the more problems there will be. That black dragon should belong to South Blue, which means that Guanyin has given an order. We have to tell her the situation as soon as possible. As soon as Xiao Beilong heard the emergency, he made Zhang Yang sit still, he doubled his speed, and flew towards Luojia Mountain. Zhang Yang was unable to open his eyes due to the wind, and there was only the whistling of the wind in his ears, but he could still perceive the strangeness around him. There was something hiding in the fog around him, and it was gradually approaching him. Xiao Beilong also noticed the difference. He vacated and prepared to stay away from the sea, but not long after he got up, the dense black shadows began to surround them. Master, the smell of the sea clan, Xiao Beilong said and flew up. You can fly, they'll leave it to me to deal with. Zhang Yang took out the golden cudgel from his back, ready to attack. Those shadows soon emerged from the fog. It turned out to be a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, who should have been waiting here to ambush Zhang Yang. The expressions on their faces were full of fear and panic, and it seemed that they were ordered by someone who was irresistible to come against Zhang Yang as a last resort. Who doesn't know the reputation of Zhang Yang's several apprentices, and going against him is simply courting death. It's a pity that destiny is difficult, they all know that this is their destiny, and they are all ready to sacrifice. Zhang Yang saw them shouting like a death squad and rushed up. Suddenly he softened and didn't want to kill innocent people indiscriminately. So let Xiao Beilong speed up going, it's best to get rid of them, and let's not get rid of them. Just after the little white dragon flew for a while, he realized that it was no longer a question of whether he could get rid of it, but whether he could escape. Because no matter how many pieces the little white dragon flies, as long as it is above the sea area, there will always be enemies in the corresponding position below the sea surface jumping out of the sea. It also stopped. Zhang Yang nodded at him, then took out the half-moon shovel of Sha Seng and threw it to the sea. Sha Laosan, I'll leave it to you here. Zhang Yang shouted. Understood, Master. San Seng's voice came from the Banyu shovel. After the Banyu shovel fell into the sea water suddenly rose by more than tens of meters, and the whole sea area was surging. The soldiers who flew up, and the soldiers who hadn't had time to get out of the water, were all dazed by the waves. A huge sea giant appeared on the sea of South Blue. With the wave of his arm, he could roll up huge waves and sweep away the enemy in a large area. Master, I didn't expect third senior brother to be so powerful. Xiao Beilong said with admiration. That's right, don't forget that he stayed in the Liusha River for a long time, and his water is very good. Zhang Yang said, let's fly to the direction of Luojia Mountain. These South Blue shrimp soldiers and crabs will clearly be sent by the Dragon King. And the Dragon King and Guanyin are neighbors, he has no grievances with us, and the black hand behind this, naturally knows who it is. Guanyin Bodhisattva, asked the little white dragon. It should be her, perhaps the reason why the secret of the ginseng fruit tree has been known to us. And she has a personal relationship with Zhen Yuanzi, although we have not met, but it is certain that there are also ginseng fruit trees in Luojia Mountain, South Blue, and the nutrients of the tree. What is it? I don't need to say more. Guanyin felt that the matter was exposed, and he wanted to kill us to silence us. Zhang Yang analyzed. But if you kill us, what about the task of obtaining scriptures? Asked Xiao Beilong. You are stupid. The fundamental purpose of learning scriptures is to preach. Anyone can do it. Zhang Yang said. They need a few Tang monks, and they can create a few Tang monks. Sun Wukong, Zhu Baji, Sha Wujing, and you, are all characters that can be copied. Even if we are erased, they can arrange another team to learn from the scriptures. Zhang Yang said. So, in order to be the protagonist, this uncle is serious this time. Quote. Chapter 498, Fighting the Whale Monster. Thanks to the assistance of the Sand Monk, the little white dragon can fly smoothly on the sea, and no small soldiers can interfere with them. The immortal Luojia mountain is looming, but the closer you get to it, the more Zhang Yang squeezes the golden hoop in his hand. Because under the sea not far in front of them, a huge black shadow appeared. When the little white dragon flew to the top of the black shadow, suddenly a violent water column sprayed up from below, hitting the little white dragon very accurately. Zhang Yang fell from the dragon's back, and the shadow below also emerged from the water. It turned out to be a huge whale. It opened its mouth wide and was about to swallow Zhang Yang. At this moment, Wukong's voice came from the golden hoop, Somersault Cloud. The somersault cloud flew from the sky with lightning speed and knocked Zhang Yang out before he fell into the whale's mouth. Zhang Yang only felt that his waist was about to be broken by the somersault cloud. When he was about to fall to the sea, Wukong's primordial spirit came out of the golden hoop. He grabbed Zhang Yang's arm with one hand, and then cast a spell. Zhang Yang could stand firmly on the sea level. But Zhang Yang couldn't straighten his back. He bent over and said, Monkey, can you make somersaults gentler next time? Although it is to save me, but because saving me has left me paralyzed for the rest of my life, it is better to kill me. Wukong, hee, Isho, and then staring at the whale that fell into the sea, he said in other words, it should be a creature that has become a spirit in this sea. My grandson doesn't know water, so let Baji come out. After speaking, he turned into a light again. Get into the golden hoop. Zhang Yang took out the nine-toothed nail rake, and Baji came out and said, Master, you and Xiaobailong continue to going, and I will leave this to my old pig. The little white dragon flew to Zhang Yang's side. Zhang Yang leaned on the dragon's back with difficulty, and then said, Let's go, slow down. After the little white dragon flew away, the whale under the sea came out of the water, but this time its size was gradually shrinking, and when he completely emerged from the sea, it had become the size of an ordinary person. This man is wearing a black robe, his eyes are small, and he is holding a long spear. He pointed his spear at Baji and said, I knew about the story of Marshal Tianpeng's subjugation of the Tianhe water demon, but when I saw it today, it was indeed extraordinary. Baji didn't eat this set. He smiled and picked up the rake, and said, You are mocking my old pig. If you are extraordinary, you will know by trying it. After speaking, Baji dragged the nine-toothed rake and flew towards the whale monster. Past. The whale monster played with the spear a few times, and with a stroke of the spear, he saw a sea dragon condensed from the sea coming out of the sea and heading straight for Baji. Seeing that it was not good, Baji hurriedly raised the nail rake to block it. Heilong opened his mouth to bite at Baji, and took the nine-toothed nail rake in one bite. Baji's power is infinite, and he threw the sea dragon out in one turn. When it rolled in the air a few times and flew towards Baji, Baji smashed the sea dragon's head with a rake, knocking it back to its original shape and turning it into seawater. Fall back into the sea. As expected of Marshal Tianpeng, he is very good at water. The whale monster ran towards him while praising Baji. The two collided head-on, their weapons smashed together, and the sea around them was shaken into 1,000 waves. On the other side, the shrimp soldiers and crabs would not dare to stand up again when Sha Seng saw that Baji was fighting with a goblin. He hurried over to help, squeezed his huge fist, and slammed it on the whale monster's head. If he hit this punch, had to blow his head off. However, the truth is always cruel. Just when Sand Monk was about to hit the whale monster with a punch, the whale monster thought of a countermeasure because he noticed it in advance. He turned around and walked past Baji. 2 high-speed rotating water columns were summoned from the sea, wrapping Baji and Sha Seng in them. As the water column continued to rotate at a high speed, the air in the water column became less and less. Baji and Sha Seng were obviously a little weak, and the range of the water column kept shrinking, just like 2 meat grinders. As long as they touched them, you can tear them to pieces. The more Baji looked at the situation in front of him, the more familiar he felt, and he suddenly shouted, recalling that when he and Brother Monkey dealt with the yellow wind monster, they also used similar tricks, but it was the tornado that trapped them at the time, and now they are trapped. It is the water tornado that lives in them, and the essence of both is actually the same. At that time, Brother Monkey held the golden hoop horizontally and rotated in place in the opposite direction of the rotation of the tornado, forming a small tornado that was just in line with the tornado. Tornado cracked. Crocodile, put your weapon across your chest, and then start to turn in a circle. The direction should be opposite to the direction of the water tornado, the faster the better, so you can go out. Baji shouted at the Sand Monk, giving he taught the method to unlock the technique, and then he started to spin himself. I know, second senior brother. Sand Monk responded. The two began to resist the water tornado, but unfortunately, Baji had grown fat and it was quite difficult to turn around. After a while, he was sweating profusely. He stopped and retched on the sea. Get up because you are so dizzy. But when he saw the sea, he immediately had a plan. Wouldn't he just dive into the sea by himself? Thinking of this, Baji plunged into the sea, and the whale monster saw that Baji had escaped, so he got into the water and followed. With a bit of stupidity, and the whale monster chasing Baji, the control of the water tornado was reduced, and the Sand Monk finally managed to escape with this method. But it was really dizzy. After he stopped, he fell on the sea and didn't dare to move. The sky in front of him was spinning, and he couldn't stand it. Then he closed his eyes and waited for the dizziness to stop. And Baji in the water is indeed more flexible than on land. Even if the whale monster chases him, he doesn't feel pressure. Unexpectedly, when he turned around, a huge mouth suddenly appeared in front of him and scared him. It turned out that the whale monster had already shown its original shape and was about to swallow Baji in one bite. Baji didn't have to hide now, but soon he thought of a good way. He reduced his body and swam into the belly of the whale monster. When he finally came to the whale monster's stomach, he grew bigger before the stomach secreted gastric acid, and quickly filled the whale's stomach. The whale monster rolled in the water in pain, but in the end he couldn't take it anymore and hurriedly begged for mercy to let Baji come out. Hee, when I dealt with the old pig just now, I wanted to let you go, and now you want me to let you go. Dream. Baji sneered, and then quickly expanded his body, bursting the whale monster's stomach alive. His body he was pulled out of a huge wound, and blood soon filled a large ocean. Chapter 499, Going to Wagwo Mountain. After Baji came out of the sea, he pulled Sha Seng up. The two brothers looked at Isho, and then went after Zhang Yang. The lucky soldier who survived went to report to the South Blue Dragon King. The Dragon King heard that the shrimp, soldiers and crabs were almost wiped out, and even the whale general was killed. He hurriedly waved his hand and said regretfully, it's okay, just let them go. Well, we tried our best. On the other hand, Zhang Yang and his party had already arrived at Luojia Mountain, and someone was already waiting for them at the foot of the mountain. Zhang Yang got down from the dragon's back, then looked at the black bear spirit that was as black as coal, and greeted him, long time no see, the guardian god of Luojia Mountain. I don't know if it was because he stayed by Guanyan's side for a long time, or if his memory was cleared. There was no expression on the face of the black bear spirit. He said coldly, don't go, you will die. Zhang Yang smiled and explained, I didn't come to threaten Guanyan, but to discuss things with her, but she sent so many people to kill me, and robbed me 3 times halfway. Isn't it too boring? The black bear spirit said, it's not good for you to know too much. Honestly, take your strength. Don't join if you shouldn't join. This is my advice. Zhang Yang shook his head and his face became serious. Hey Shang, you have changed. Back then, you were kind-hearted, so how could you help Zhou to be abusive now? It is rare for the black bear spirit to have an expression, but it is bitter. People's resentment can be eliminated, but you can't get rid of the bodhisattva's resentment, can you? Zhang Yang said, I said it for you. If you want to break through Luojia mountain, walk over my corpse. The black bear spirit took out his weapon, the black tassel spear. The golden hoop Vivi vibrated. Wukong came out. He held the golden hoop, and said to Zhang Yang, Master, this is handed over to me. You can go to Guanyin, but be careful. Elder brother, I'll help you. Xiao Bailong turned into an adult, holding a sword and standing beside Wukong. You go to protect the master, and don't allow any trouble. Wukong said to him. Zhang Yang nodded. He patted Wukong on the shoulder, and then walked towards the stone steps. The black bear attacked Zhang Yang, and without waiting for the golden bell jar to appear, Wukong's golden cudgel was already in front of him, and the battle between him and the black bear spirit was about to break out. Stepping on the stone steps, Zhang Yang finally came to the depths of Luojia mountain. In front of him was a lotus flower platform on which Guanyin Bodhisattva was sitting, closing his eyes and resting. I thought you were a smart person, but you've been doing stupid things. Guanyin said in his mouth. Wrong, you think I'm a fool and can be at your mercy. Zhang Yang came to Guanyin, found a place and sat down. Xiao Bailong stood beside him. His eyes kept staring at Muza next to Guanyin Bodhisattva, to prevent him from attacking Zhang Yang. Guanyin Bodhisattva slowly opened his eyes and said with a dark face, You are exactly the same as Jin Chanzi. You are stubborn and you are looking for trouble for yourself. He originally advocated that human beings have life and death, gods and Buddhas also have life and death, and spiritual things such as peaches and ginseng fruits should not be overly relied on. You know what his fate will be. 10 times of painful reincarnation. Each life is not more than 20 years old. God and Buddha killed, and divided his meat to eat, for immortality. No, you're wrong. I'm not here to tell you nonsense to keep you from immortality. I just want to discuss with you and make the Jade Emperor's peach down together. Even an idiot could see that he hid the peach and framed it for Wukong. His purpose was to demonstrate to the Buddhist disciples, but his method was a little naive. Zhang Yang continued. Guanyin Bodhisattva, please think about it for yourself. I have a solution to your problem of survival. I didn't come to destroy the ginseng fruit tree in Luojia mountain. I want you to destroy it yourself. It seems that you really know something. Guanyin Bodhisattva said, I have asked the Jade Emperor for pan peaches many times. At first, he said that the peaches were eaten up by monkeys, and then he said that all the fruit trees were destroyed by monkeys. It's gone, the lie is obvious, but it's not easy for me to expose him because it's like begging. I have a way to help the Buddhist disciples get pantao, but you have to agree to 3 conditions. Zhang Yang said without waiting for Guanyin Bodhisattva to agree. The first is to destroy the ginseng fruit tree. The second is that you and Zhenyuanzi the dead babies must be saved and saved. Third, you have to do me a favor for this to be successful. Quote. Tell me, said Guanyin Bodhisattva. In the following time, Zhang Yang told Guanyin about his plan. Guanyin was very excited when she heard that she was looking for someone to make trouble in the Tiangong again, so she agreed without hesitation. That's good, as long as you do this beautifully, you will not only gain face for the Buddha, but also solve the great event of immortality. I will immediately destroy the ginseng fruit tree, help all the infant spirits to save, and I will also give you a first-class merit. After you have learned the scriptures and arrived in the West, there will be a big reward for you. And during your execution, I will give all 3 of your apprentices back their true bodies. Zhang Yang didn't care about the reward at all. He originally wanted to ask if he could also find Cat Niang's body, but he couldn't say it, because Guanyin Bodhisattva had already compromised too much like him, and he was embarrassed to ask again. So Zhang Yang just asked. I met you several times and didn't have time to ask. This time I want to ask clearly, do you have something like the gate of time and space? Guanyin Bodhisattva nodded and said, it does exist, it's in Lingshan. Zhang Yang was relieved now. He said to Guanyin Bodhisattva, "Okay, let your black bear spirit stop, Wukong and him are fighting fiercely." After Mu Za sent the order, Wukong and the black bear spirit stopped fighting. At this time, Baji and Sha Seng also came. Soon after, Zhang Yang discussed some details with Guanyin Bodhisattva and planned to go to Wagwo Mountain. On the way to Wagwo Mountain, several of his apprentices were teasing and talking to each other in the weapon, and the cat girl in Jinling had not made any movement so far. Cat girl. There was no response. Zhang Yang's heart was vaguely anxious. What he didn't know was that the cat girl in Jinling had been planning her own plan. Wagwoshan is still proud to come to the country, and there is still a long way to go. Zhang Yang on the back of the dragon calls Wukong out of the golden hoop. Zhang Yang wanted to chat with Wukong for a long time, and now is the opportunity for the teacher and the apprentice to have a serious face-to-face conversation for the first time. Zhang Yang said, "Although we have a master-apprentice relationship, we shouldn't be too rigid. I hate rules. In fact, you can call me brothers and sisters. We are best friends. I don't know how long we can go in the future. To be honest, I don't know, and I don't even know if what I'm going to do this time will kill you. Us, do you blame me?" Chapter 500. The Little Stone Monkey and the Old Monkey King. How could Wukong blame Zhang Yang? When he was at the foot of the Five Elements Mountain, the bald man said that Wukong's confusion would be found on the way to learn the scriptures. To be honest, he was still doubting it, because he had not found the answer. However, in getting along with Zhang Yang and his juniors, he gradually realized that the answer is not so important, and the mentality of longing for an answer is gone. Wukong was still struggling with himself before. Why would he downplay his confusion, and he didn't want to care so much about an answer. He seemed to be a little bit worried these days. This may be called letting go, or it may be called maturity. When he was a little monkey, he always listened to the old monkeys in Wagwo Mountain saying that monkeys must have their own beliefs in life, and this belief must be believing in themselves. Monkeys do not believe in Buddhas or gods. They only believe in themselves. Only then can they climb tall trees to pick fruit, and then they can go down to rushing rivers to catch fish, and only then can they survive. However, the monkeys in Wagwo Mountain finally encountered something that could not be solved by faith, that is, the Shuilian cave in the waterfall. Countless monkeys wanted to jump over the waterfall and go to the Shuilian cave to find out, but unfortunately none of them could do it. In the end, they made a rule that whoever can enter the water curtain cave can be their king. The old monkey king didn't want to, saying that they were talking nonsense, but no one took care of him, so he ran to the side alone and was sad. The old monkey king is sad. He is old, and he has fallen behind in both body and mind. He knows what his fate will be. He is defeated by a vigorous young monkey, and then he is not seen by the monkeys in the group. Finally, he died alone. Even now, no one listens to his words, and the group is restless, and they hope that someone can defeat the old monkey. At this time, the old monkey king educated Wukong, telling him that people must not have their own beliefs in this life, and those who have beliefs want to rebel. Little Wukong didn't listen to the old monkey king, but he liked to stay by the old monkey king's side, because it was the old guy who persuaded all the monkeys to keep him, the oddball who jumped out of the stone, into the group. As time passed, the old monkey king found more and more that there was a burly monkey looking at him in the wrong way, and he began to avoid the monkey's eyes, and avoid the group. When it was quiet at night, he stood in front of the waterfall and looked around for a long time. After making sure that there were no monkeys that woke up in the middle of the night to urinate, he shook his arms and moved his whole body, thinking about jumping into the waterfall. Unfortunately, when he was doing stretching exercises, he had already twisted his waist, so he had to sit on the ground and stared at the waterfall in a daze. Xiao Wukong can't sleep. He has many novelties about this world, including why the old monkey still doesn't abdicate when he is so old, and he wants to jump into the waterfall to continue his king's status. The old monkey king knows that Xiao Wukong has been peeking at himself, but he will not have any psychological burden, because he knows that Xiao Wukong will not talk nonsense everywhere. He beckoned Xiao Wukong to come over, and then said to him, "Little stone monkey, if a new Monkey King is born in the future, will you ignore me like them? Xiao Wukong thought about it for a long time, and then nodded with great certainty. The old Monkey King asked in astonishment, "Why? You made my heart break like this, you know." Xiao Wukong explained, "You are too stingy, you always own most of the fruit, and when you give other monkeys a small portion, you are too lazy, do nothing by yourself, and let other monkeys beat you the legs or pinched on the back, and the constant stroking of other female monkeys is a little uncomfortable for me." Quote. The old Monkey King knocked Xiao Wukong hard on the head, and then cursed, "You are a stone-brained person, and you don't understand farts. The fruit production in Wagwo Mountain is very small, and I give them a small amount so that they can pay back the next meal. I have something to eat, I let them do things for me to exercise their minds and abilities, and I pat the female monkeys because they are comfortable." Quote. After saying that, the old Monkey King felt guilty. He had no other reason for doing this, just because it was so cool to exercise kingship. In addition, about him touching the female monkeys, it is actually because the old Monkey King was born without fertility, and none of the female monkeys he had ever met were pregnant, so over time, no female monkeys were willing to follow him. Everyone is for reproduction and reproduction. He can't give birth, and he can only die alone. He usually has nothing to do to tease and molest the good mother monkey, which is regarded as a pastime. Xiao Wukong believed it, and he said, "If you are defeated in the future, I will still be by your side, always by your side." After hearing this, the old Monkey King had a sore nose and almost cried. He stroked Xiao Wukong's head and sighed, "If only you could jump in, if you became the Monkey King, you could protect me, just like when I protected you." Xiao Wukong thought about it for a while, and then said to the old Monkey King, "Actually, I have 2 ways to get into that hole." The old Monkey King asked him in disbelief, "Really? Tell me quickly." Xiao Wukong said, "The first is to tie a rattan from the waterfall, and then fall all the way down, and then you can enter the hole. The second is to use the rattan to fix it on the ground, and then use the elastic force to shoot yourself into the hole, but it's not feasible, and if you don't aim, you'll crash and die somewhere else." After listening to the old Monkey King's eyes lit up, he suddenly looked at Xiao Wukong with admiration. He said, How could you have such a way? We are all jumping, you are falling, this way of thinking, it's weird, but it's very convenient. It seems that because of your special reasons, I think you are the monkey choice who can help us monkeys to prosper." Xiao Wukong shook his head and said, "I don't want to be the Monkey King." The old Monkey King said, "You must be the Monkey King, or I might be beaten to death by them, you know. Only you can save me." Xiao Wukong thought for a while. Although he didn't want to be a Monkey King, he really wanted to save the old Monkey King. If he could save him by being a Monkey King, he would be very willing. He also knew that even if the old Monkey King entered the cave himself, he would not be able to hold the throne for long, and there were still people who coveted his position, and it was really humiliating to think about being the king at such an old age. What he wants most now is a peaceful life in his later years. Xiao Wukong feels that if he can give it to him, he will definitely give it to him. Seeing Wukong's answer, the old Monkey King was ecstatic. He said excitedly, "I'll call all the monkeys to see you enter the cave as soon as the sun rises. You behave well, it's the rules they set anyway. If you go back on it, I'll look at the embarrassment on their faces." Xiao Wukong nodded and said, "If I become the Monkey King, you just need to grow old, and I will always be by your side."